One of my favorite things about pop culture is overthinking it. And the internet is full of pop culture theories, and The Office itself has no shortage. And while I could be redundant and just spout out some well-known theories about Toby being the Scranton Strangler, which he's not, or Jim having an affair on Pam, which he didn't, I'm opting instead to present some more obscure Office theories called from Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever else I can find them around the web. But for today's video, it's mostly Reddit. If you like this video, give it a like. It'll help me know if I should do more like this. So the structure is going to be really simple. I'll introduce a theory, I'll give supporting details, and then I'll give some of my commentary on it. So with that, let's get all conspiratorial. So I'm going to start off with something pretty simple. My favorite part of reading any of this is going to be the Reddit names. This one comes from Redditor Fun Panda, and at least that post was the first time I had ever seen it. And so the theory setup is this. In Season 4, when Michael and Jan are playing the most awkward game of dysfunctional house ever, we come to the understanding that Jan's income has gone from whatever a mid-range New York City paper company executive makes to approximately $0 a year.
Good luck paying me back on your $0 a year salary plus benefits, babe!
Which means that Serenity by Jan has yet to make any money. So fast forward to Season 5, and we get this exchange.
You remember last week when that girl went missing? Guess whose candles they used for the vigil?
Cool. Thank God they found her, too.
Oh, they found her?
And that's the setup. The theory here is that Jan, having broken up with Michael, has virtually nowhere else to turn. Jan, desperate for money, turns towards kidnapping a young woman in order to generate a lead to sell her candles for that young woman's vigil. That's why she looks so jarred when Kevin says that the girl was found.
Oh, they found her?
And like I said, this one was simple. I rate this theory fun, but no good. Is Jan capable of kidnapping a child?
Okay.
Yes, I think she is. And while she's hurting for money, I think the breakup with Michael, the pregnancy, and not having anywhere to turn was the rock bottom she needed to turn things around. Sort of. Also, if that girl was found, unless Jan completely eluded the police and this young girl's suspicion, she would have definitely been in jail for this. Still a fun theory. Moving on. This theory comes from Redditor GVH1112, but I've also seen this one floating around Facebook before. The setup here is that towards the end of Season 3, Jim has become relatively disillusioned with his relationship with Karen. And as they're both applying for the same job, knowing that only one of them can get it, they have this discussion along the way.
Okay, I was at the beach. We don't have a future in Scranton. There's one too many people there.
You mean Kevin?
And ultimately, Jim decides to pursue things with Pam, turning down an apparent promotion and breaking things off with Karen. And so the theory goes that Kevin is the one who convinced Jim when he asked Jim this the day of his interview.
So, Jim, who do you think is hotter, Pam or Karen?
When Jim tells Kevin,
You know what? Why don't you take the rest of the day, figure it out, and then come back and tell me what you got?
Will do.
All right.
this theory posits that there is an unseen conversation in which Kevin relays all of his thoughts back to Jim and convinces him that Pam is the right choice.
Then who do you think will get the job?
Karen. She looks corporate. Those little pantsuits.
I think it's going to be Michael.
And that's the theory. The biggest support that I can give for this is that Kevin is pretty astute when it comes to Jim and Pam's relationship.
They've been in remarkably good moods. Could be other things.
Are you kidding me?
So, is Kevin the unseen puppeteer behind The Office? I rate this theory, maybe. And so stick with me. I don't think Kevin ultimately convinced Jim of anything, except that Jim needed to make a decision. Kevin, as a mastermind behind The Office, is pretty fun. I don't think there's any support in the series to merit that at all. It's a good observation. Kevin, perhaps unintentionally, planted that doubt. The yogurt lid is what solidified Jim's decision. Moving on. Okay, and this one is fun, very science fiction-y. And this one, again, it comes to us from Reddit via user RobDog19. This theory posits that Meredith is a future version of Pam from an alternate timeline in which Pam married Roy. So the support for this theory starts with their physical appearance. They're both Caucasian, they both have red hair, and they both have similar heights. And while they have different facial features, the argument is that Pam's younger, and the years of stress and drinking just weren't so kind to Pam. Another support for this theory is that we know that drunk Pam is pretty wild.
I don't know. What? Oh my God. You are so drunk.
She just doesn't seem to have that much of a reason to drink yet. Also in support of this theory are the strange Jim and Meredith connections. In season 9, we see that Meredith gets confused for Jim's wife.
And this must be your lovely wife, Pam. No.
Hell no. She wishes.
No.
In Michael's Last Dundies, Jim gets the Best Dad Award, but Pam doesn't get the Best Mom Award, Meredith does. It's also odd that Meredith both seems attracted to Jim, but also says she's afraid of him. Perhaps all these point out that Meredith and Jim have some sort of strange connection to each other, which would make sense if she's actually Pam from another timeline. Beyond those connections is the fact that Roy has an immediate connection with Meredith's kid.
Pam, I love this guy.
Which would be likely if Roy actually was that kid's father in an alternate reality. And then there's the Lice episode in season 9, in which it shows that once Jim is out of Pam's life, even for a little bit, she begins to become a lot like Meredith.
Morning, Meredith. What? Oh, sorry, Pam. Yikes.
How did this alternate reality version of Meredith appear in The Office's universe? Well, the theory doesn't address that at all. It's just pointing out all of this combined to show that had Pam stayed with Roy, this is what her life would have turned out like. Divorced, or maybe never even married, a single mom, turns to alcohol and other vices. She would have ultimately taken any other job in Dunder Mifflin that she could have and stayed working there for the rest of her life. And that's the theory. And I'll rate this theory smart, but definitely way off. Clearly the show doesn't play with any supernatural or science fiction-y things at all.
Wait a minute. You said it was a magician, right? You don't think he could have used... It couldn't have been...
It's just...
But what is insightful about this, that I hadn't even thought of until this point, is that there are some parallels written between the two. And it's probably there to juxtapose the two of them against each other, which is not something I'd really considered until reading this. So I'm definitely going to be looking into that where I see it in these field guides. Moving on. Okay, and this one is only a month old and was posted by Redditor Harris' sister. And the theory is centered around Pam never actually failing art school. So the setup for this one, at the end of season 4, Pam gets accepted into the Pratt School of Design, one of the top art schools in the world. But in season 5, after failing a class, Pam decides she's going to leave art school for good. But this theory posits that Pam never actually failed art school. And the support for this theory is as follows. Pam is talented enough to be accepted in the school in the first place, which is definitely no small feat. Pam's art skills are cross-discipline and very versatile. Throughout the series, her skills in drawing, painting, and digital art are all shown. In addition to some natural talent, we see that Pam never struggles while she's in art school. She's shown to be able to cope with the stress of the workload, learning the software, and even tells Jim's brothers that one of her teachers thinks she shows a lot of promise. Late in her time in art school, she has this conversation with a classmate.
All I'm saying is, if there's even a teeny tiny part of you that really wants to be an artist, then I think you should stay here.
It seems to be at this moment that she's realizing that if she's going to do something with this as a career, it's going to be away from Scranton. And then lastly, we don't actually see Pam fail anything. We just hear that conversation she has with Jim.
Are you sure?
I just talked to my advisor. Failing.
Wow.
So why would Pam graduate art school and not tell Jim? Well, this theory posits that Pam told Jim that she failed in order to alleviate any disruption to the future of their relationship. We know that Jim and Pam are an incredibly supportive couple. She knows that Jim wouldn't rest until she was pursuing what really made her happy. Once she realized that pursuing a career in art would lead her away from Jim, she begins to have a change of heart. And I'm going to quote this directly from the Reddit post to wrap it up. I think that when she was with Roy, she yearned for a different life, and that art had been that idea of a different life she'd clung to. But with Jim, she no longer yearns for that different life, she just wants to be with him. So then theoretically, she tells Jim that she failed because she knows he'd be supportive of her failure as much as he'd be supportive of her success. And in this way, she knows that they can build a life uninterrupted the way that she's been dreaming of. I think this theorist is spot on with why Pam decides not to pursue her art career any further. It's because she's realizing that the future she wants is with Jim. Where I think this theory falls flat is that honesty seems to be pretty key in their relationship, and I don't think this is the kind of thing she would take to her grave. Either way, I'm a pretty big fan of this one. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so when I originally made notes for this episode, I swear I found this theory somewhere. Now, it's just mysteriously gone. So I'm gonna pull this thread that I started a few weeks ago. And this theory gets a little meta, so stick with me. We all know that The Office is a mockumentary produced by NBC. Within the story of The Office is a documentary crew who's captured footage on paper company employees for over 8 years. And that's all before they even begin to air the documentary. This theory holds that the documentary is actually just a reality show in which these characters of Jim, Dwight, Pam, Michael, and everyone else are actually just actors on a reality show. And I'm using actor here loosely, in the same way that anyone who's on The Bachelor or Duck Dynasty is playing themselves for the show, but there's definitely a director and a loose script written for every episode that these actors have to follow. And there are 3 main pieces of support for this theory. First, through multiple buyouts, firings, literal fires, and the economic downturn in a declining industry, the Scranton branch seems to be doing just fine throughout all of this, and is left relatively unchanged through the years. This is easily explained if this is just simply a reality show being produced. Another support for this is that it's strange that The Office skips forward in time pretty consistently throughout the series, as though multiple weeks have gone by in between these episodes. Where was the film crew during these off periods? Is something going crazy every day in the Scranton branch, or were you to believe that the film crew just happened to arrive when some of that crazy stuff was going down? And then lastly, there's just too many planned shots and excellent sound for this documentary crew to be handling everything on the fly. Filming is a nightmare, especially when you have no idea what's going to happen next. And the cameras always seem to be at the right place to get the right shots. And that's the setup and the support for this theory. So, the reality show theory, I rate this one pretty dumb, but pretty fun. Every point I listed above are pretty much just considerations that the real Office showrunners had, not the fictitious in-show showrunners. Still, it's a fun one to think about. And that's all I have for today. If you have any Office theories or any thoughts on the theories I talked about, leave it in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. As always, consider giving this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Alright, so carrying on the series of lesser-known Office theories that I started last year, today I wanted to focus on some obscure Office theories having to do with some massive secrets that some of the characters are possibly keeping.
Secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
Wow. These theories, like all fan theories, are just fun thought experiments. I think they work out a part of our brain when we're watching a show and connecting neurons that add a new level of excitement to the series. So are these true?
Don't know, super care.
Does that matter?
No way, Jose!
Lastly, lesser known is a relative statement. If you scour the depths of the web every day, you're probably familiar with these. If not, then they're probably new.
Nice.
Oh, and before we begin, here's my daily reminder that Toby was not the Scranton Strangler.
Well, when you were writing the show and when you were acting in the show, did that ever cross your mind?
No.
Not once.
Now let's expose some secrets. Fair warning, spoilers ahead.
I understand nothing.
When you try to put Michael in a box, it gets a little complicated. Is he a jerk?
Maybe Angela would cheerlead.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'll do it.
Oh, yuck. That's worse than you playing.
Or is he kind?
I'm really proud of you.
Is he a realist?
I quit my job. We both quit. Those are the facts. That's what happened.
Or is he fanciful?
Well, that's easy for you to say. You have a bad imagination. It's stupid. I live in a fantasy world.
And we could do this with a few more adjectives and their antonyms, but for the sake of the theory, let's look at just one more. Is he dumb?
I declare bankruptcy!
Or is he smart?
So they may be looking for a little change in the CFO. So I don't think I need to wait out under Mifflin. I think I just have to wait out you.
And if you watched Michael through his 7 seasons on the show on repeat like a lot of fans have, you begin to see some method to Michael's madness. As a boss, on the surface, it's easy to just look at the surface craziness that Michael saturates the Scranton office with in each episode.
I burned my foot very badly on my Foreman grill.
And then conclude that Michael's an idiot.
Wow, a lot of calories. Well, just don't leave it on too long.
But fans are quick to point out how effective Michael actually was as a salesman.
I almost had awesome blossom coming out of my nose.
But as a boss,
You really suck as a ball.
well, this theory would say that Michael isn't just smart, he's actually a genius.
Is he some sort of secret genius?
And some evidence was right in front of our face the entire time.
Your branch has been doing great lately, and your sales staff is reporting very strong numbers. Outperforming last year, in fact.
So the branch always excelled, regardless of the economy.
In this climate?
Yeah, in all climates.
Regardless of their corporate boss.
That we were the one branch that was actually working right, so we probably could have saved our own asses. We didn't need them touching our asses.
So how did the branch always do so well?
Because at Dunder Mifflin Scranton, we're not just in the paper business. We're in the people business.
Well, logically, it's the people. The people make up the branch. Between customer service,
quality assurance,
sales, and accounting, they were a well-oiled machine that didn't rely on anyone, which is even explored in season 9.
So as it turns out, unless you're a young child or a prison inmate, you don't need anyone supervising you.
Come in.
Andy, hi. I just made another huge sale for the company that you manage, so I need you to authorize that expense report and sign off on that contract.
So how is the lack of a need for a manager evidence that Michael is a genius?
Dwight, you ignorant slut.
Which may be the question we should be asking ourselves is, has Michael somehow managed the branch so well that he basically alleviated the need for any semblance of real leadership? Well, not quite, but in the words of Tupac, if you let a person talk long enough, you'll hear their true intentions. So what does Michael say about his managerial approach? Well, since season 1, he spoke about how his workers are his family. And Michael's relationship-first approach is presented in every season.
You know, you can go mess with Josh's people, but I'm the head of this family, and you ain't gonna be messing with my children. Times have changed a little. And even though we're still a family here at Dunder Mifflin, families grow. My branch is absorbing the Stanford branch. Or as I like to put it, my family is doubling in size.
Michael, you always said we were a family.
And it's still there in his very last episode.
The people that you work with are just, when you get down to it, your very best friends.
It's also clear that Michael doesn't treat people differently based on their function.
And you know why not? Because I am colorblind.
And while Michael can be inappropriate for the office place at times,
that's what she said. No time. But she did. No time.
He does have a perfectly fine explanation for this as well.
I say stuff like that, you know, to lighten the tension when things sort of get hard.
That's what she said.
And also, all of this works when we break down Michael's sales approach. We get a great example of this in season 2. He diffuses tension.
Did somebody say baby back ribs?
Baby back
Chili's baby back ribs.
He breaks down barriers.
And take care of her.
Whew. Well, this brings us to Jan. Truth or dare? Tell us about your divorce.
He relates with his clients.
How many hospitals we have, how many schools we have. It's home, you know? I know the challenges of this.
And he makes the deal.
I guess I could give you guys our business, but you have to meet me halfway, okay? Because they're expecting me to make cuts.
So how does Michael lead by not leading?
I see.
Listen, why don't we just leave that position vacant? Truth be told, I think I thrive under a lack of accountability.
It's almost as though Michael creates an environment that through his insanity, he empowers his workers to take responsibility for their own workload, and in that way, they get stuff done. So I want to hear in the comments, do you think that Michael is a genius?
Sometimes I say crazy things.
But Michael isn't the only one that's theorized to be a genius.
My name is Kevin.
Yeah.
That is my name.
Yeah.
They call me Kevin.
Yeah.
Because that's my name.
Roll call.
For fans of my channel, it's no surprise that Kevin is one of my favorite characters.
I just want to lie on the beach and eat hot dogs. That's all I've ever wanted.
One of 3 accountants in the Scranton branch, Kevin's necessity and presence is an ongoing joke throughout the series.
Well, I looked through all the budgets, and there is one department
Yes.
that has 3 people
Yeah.
doing the work that could be done by 2.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Kevin is much beloved by most Office fans as the dull-witted numbers guy,
I do the numbers.
with Kevin becoming more and more of a caricature of himself every episode.
Oh, don't be a caricature, Kevin. Never be a caricature.
With Holly, the new HR rep, even easily being conned.
I think it's really cool you hired Kevin.
Thanks.
It's hard to fathom anything real happening under the surface here, but let's look at the evidence. This theory points out that Kevin gradually de-evolved throughout the series. To make the point, here's Kevin's first line spoken in the show.
I bet it's gonna be me. Probably gonna be me.
Yeah, it'll be you.
And here's Kevin in the season 9 premiere.
The turtle was already dead. Probably when I ran over him the first time.
And the show even references this decline in this meta moment.
Me feel good, body strong, sleep big last night.
No,
guys,
he's fine.
he's fine.
He's always been like that.
No, he hasn't.
I mean, he's gotten worse over the years.
It's hard to really pinpoint at what point Kevin became Kevin.
Hey.
But on my channel, I'm reviewing every single episode of The Office in quite a lot of detail, and I'd say that if this theory is to be believed, if Kevin is really just pretending to be Kevin,
You can't eat cats, Kevin.
then the answer to that question, we need to talk about what his motives for doing this are in the first place. The first theory is that Kevin is pretending to be slow because he knows that it'll make him more of an interesting character and thus give him more screen time in the documentary. And this theory kind of tracks. When you look generally at season 1, when Kevin is, quote, normal, he's just a background character with little to nothing to do work-wise and in the documentary.
Maybe some spaghetti.
Okay, Kevin, you can take off that thing, okay?
By the end of the doc crew's time in Scranton, he gets a substantial amount of screen time in every episode.
What are you doing?
I wanted to eat a pig in a blanket. In a blanket.
So if Kevin is putting on a facade to make for a more engaging documentary subject, then I'd say this all started in Season 2's Office Olympics, in which Kevin can barely contain his smile and giggles as the doc crew gives him a tight shot as he, perhaps on purpose, is using the wrong hand during the national anthem. This Pavlov's dog reward moment gives Kevin all of the ammunition he may need to increasingly become more of an engaging character.
It's not Ashton Kutcher. It's Kevin Malone.
Kevin, then, is just a character that this guy puts on to get more screen time. And this theory kind of works with Andy, too.
You even look shorter.
Oh, I took out my lifts.
Oh.
Yeah, unlike Andy Bernard, this character is my real height.
But the other motive that Kevin may have is that he's actually embezzling money from the company.
Gasp.
Right, so we think of Kevin as a big, harmless pillow.
Equally handsome, equally smart.
This theory would suggest that's exactly what he wants you to think. Just a bumbling fool who could never pull off a con right in front of our faces. But let's break this down. We know that Kevin has a gambling problem.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, but no one here has it.
Someone has it.
This means that he'll either be in a position of deficit, like in the Kevin's Loan webisode,
That little dude may hurt me if I don't get that bank loan.
or he's always on the prowl for his next risk-reward situation to take some sweet, sweet cash.
And that is Dallas.
And we know that he's more than willing to steal some money from Dunder Mifflin from petty cash.
I'm gonna take this petty cash that I got from Oscar and turn it into next month's rent.
While I don't think this next joke was written to make us believe something nefarious was happening, I think that it could be open to interpretation.
I had Martin explain to me 3 times what he got arrested for. It sounds an awful lot like what I do here every day.
And you might think, well, Kevin isn't smart enough to pull this all off. But from time to time, some intelligence ends up slipping through the cracks.
I won the 2002 $2,500 no-limit deuce-to-7 draw tournament at the World Series of Poker in Vegas.
13 miles away. So at 55 miles an hour, that just gives us 5 minutes to spare.
With Poker and Pie, Kevin seems to have no problem counting. So what's his endgame? Well, we find out in the finale that Kevin was fired. He bought a bar.
Heard you bought a bar, Kevin?
Yes, I did. This one.
An entire bar. Who knows how much he'd spend on that, but to go from having nothing to owning a bar means that there was plenty going on in the background that we never saw in the series. Keep in mind that Kevin did use a special accounting trick to keep the books.
He used to call it a Clevin. He told Dwight, a mistake plus Clevin gets you home by 7.
And while that may be why the Scranton branch always ended up performing the best in the company, it could have been Kevin's way of embezzling that money.
I am going to be a very rich dude.
Or there was a completely different reason why the Scranton branch was always on top.
Why is PBS sending another crew?
We're getting bonus footage for the DVD.
Okay, this one is pretty straightforward and seeks to answer a very specific plot point that is present throughout most of the series, and that is Scranton Branch's apparent success in spite of the economy and in spite of itself.
A product that nobody wanted.
This theory posits that the documentary crew filming all of the craziness decided that they had struck proverbial gold with finding incredible documentary subjects. The quirkiness, the drama, the mundanity, all of it. The producers surely knew that there would be gold in them hills and began to purchase paper from Dunder Mifflin Scranton anonymously as to not interfere directly with their subjects.
When are you gonna boo me?
Listen, they're cracking down on us talking to the subjects. It's a lame rule, but I'll see you later.
Got it.
The logistics involved in this, the money it took, would have all made a worthy profit for everyone involved.
And you are going to have to explain to them why your most profitable branch is bleeding.
What about the fact that the doc aired on the not-for-profit PBS network?
PBS, the propaganda wing of Bill and Melinda Gates, and viewers like you.
Go to the bathroom for 45 minutes and everything changes.
Right, not much money in it there, unless PBS procured the rights from the original production company for a hefty fee. And perhaps the documentary company could then sell the rights to the American workplace to another network. I don't mean to demean PBS, but I can't imagine a locally aired PBS documentary could actually incur this much stardom.
Hey, it's Andy Bernard.
Maybe it would, I don't know. But that's just what this theory suggests, that the doc crew secretly kept the branch afloat. And speaking of floating...
His name? Creed Bratton.
Before this last theory, if you could give this video a like, that would be awesome. It helps a ton. If you don't...
Screw you, Texas Poon Tapper!
Anyway, I've said this before on this channel, if The Office was a recipe, Creed Bratton is a certain spice that we get just the right amount of. Too little Creed, and something's missing.
What is it then?
Hey guys, somebody making soup?
Too much Creed, and you might spoil the dish.
I'm sorry.
For sure, someone will argue with me about that in the comments, but the point is that the character of Creed is the phrase non sequitur in human form.
Do that, I'm gonna do that. If you do that, I'm gonna do that. If you do this, I'm gonna do that.
Once you see him presented on camera, and he begins to open his mouth, well, we don't exactly know what he's gonna say, or what he'll do. Maybe he'll drop some knowledge.
I love my kids, I love real estate, I love ceramics, I love my job, I love wrestling.
Maybe he'll nail a cartwheel.
I did it!
You did?
The perfect cartwheel.
And you may think that his backstory isn't fully explored until the final episode.
Creed was in the band The Grassroots in the 1960s. During that time, the police say he sold drugs and trafficked in endangered species meat.
But it was, several times throughout the series.
Back in the 60s, I was with the Grassroots. We toured with Janis Joplin, The Doors, Cream.
They were simply deleted from the final cut, seemingly to make the character more elusive. But we even get this moment in season 4 when Creed shows off his ID, in which it shows a completely different name, which this is Creed Bratton's actual birth name, which means that Creed Bratton is actually an alias in real life, and in the show.
The last person to do this disappeared. His name? Creed Bratton.
But for totally different reasons, and I'm kind of confused just saying that sentence.
The timeline's messy.
Anyway, I explored Creed a little bit in the Office horror video I made, but Creed's been shown to traffic animals, be involved in cults, and potentially murder.
There has been a murder, and you are a suspect.
So it's obvious that there's a lot of secretivity around this character's backstory. But those theories about it are abundant. Some argue that Creed is the Scranton Strangler. Which would definitely be more believable than this guy.
No more s'mores. No more s'mores.
Hey, nobody cares.
Because this dude, he's killed people.
It's Halloween. That is really, really good timing.
But strangling someone doesn't produce that much blood. At least, I would assume. I don't know, guys. And there is a plot element that the writers have talked about, but they never really stated in the show, that the Strangler wasn't actually strangling people to death, just gripping them till their life bar was about empty, then letting off, which might even be more messed up. I'm not sure.
Great heroine, though.
But I guess I could see Creed as that type of creep.
Sometimes it's best just to stay out of it.
That's true. That's right, yeah.
Want to play a game?
One more theory suggests that when Creed says this,
nobody steals from Creed Bratton and gets away with it.
Creed Bratton went on a quest to hunt down and destroy the culprits, John Wick style.
They're real casual, like, not make a big deal out of it, but I know everybody saw it.
Other fan theories suggest that Creed's erratic behavior is partly due to his elderly dementia.
Creed Bratton, 75 plus division.
You're over 75 years old?
82 November 1st. How much is the prize money?
There's no prize money.
But is any of this real? I'm 30. Well, in November I'll be 30.
Another fan theory hypothesizes that Creed's simply pretending to be bizarre due to the fact that he's literally hiding from the law in plain sight.
Just pretend like we're talking until the cops leave.
Hoping to use the evidence gathered by the doc crew as a legal defense to why he's not able to stand trial due to mental instability.
As I like to call it, Great Bratton. Keep it running.
Then there's the simple yet delightful idea that Creed is biding his time to get to Scotland and hunt down Nessie.
Why don't you tell Stanley that I have asthma? Because I don't. If it gets out, they won't let me scuba. If I can't scuba, then what's this all been about? What am I working toward? The Loch Ness Monster. And the reward for its capture? All the riches in Scotland. So I have one question. Why are you here?
And then lastly, that Creed is somehow mixed up with organized crime. And that somehow he's still operating under that alias, printing illegal IDs, pretending to work a mild-mannered job, though he's never actually working.
Choir.
And I do like that last one, but I like the theory more that Bob Vance is secretly a mobster. I feel like there's more weight in the evidence for that.
Who's Bob Vance?
You have a lot to learn about this town, sweetie.
But maybe the most suspicious moment for Bob Vance is all the cash he threw in to make Toby's goodbye party a smashing success.
Cool.
That's like what, $5,000 to rent a Ferris wheel? I mean, they had to spend over $10,000 on this party. I'm pretty sure the refrigeration business was doing well in 2008.
Thanks, I've never owned a refrigerator.
But it seems like a suspicious amount of cash to be throwing around for something so trivial. What are you hiding, Bob? Was Bob Vance the Scranton Strangler?
Oh, no. Of course not.
Okay.
No. Bob's a United States Marine Corps infantry combat officer from Vietnam, of course, which in some circles may have qualified him, but, no. A Marine, always, once and forever.
Yeah, Robert Schaefer told me that his view of the character was pretty straight-laced, so I guess he's not hiding so much. He just loves his wife. So that's what I have for lesser-known office theories on character secrets. Let me know in the comments what you think about these secrets or what your favorite office theory is that at least has some evidence to it. If you drop something awesome and I end up using it for a future video, I'll make sure to call it out. If you love The Office like I do, please check out the rest of my channel. I'm reviewing every episode once a week with a lot of details, some edits,
I am here to scare you straight!
and a look at each episode's deeper meaning.
They caught the Scranton Strangler. They trapped him in his house.
Out and then photographing them is believed to be inside.
Well, the good news is Scranton Strangler isn't who I thought it was.
How do you know?
Because who I thought it was just walked in the office.
Sup, weirdos?
If you're out there, Strangler, you will get caught. By me.
Just who is the Scranton Strangler? This one-off joke turned reoccurring bit set fire to the Office fandom, dead set in their belief that the Strangler is one of the Dunder Mifflin employees. And some of those theories are kind of compelling and kind of dark.
The whole office feels darker.
Especially the last one we're going to be talking about today. just made me feel there's so many theories about the Scranton Strangler, and today we're going to be looking at all of them.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Okay, not like all of them, because a bunch of them are not really well thought out, but today we're going to be putting together the list of the most convincing theories about the identity of the Scranton Strangler. I'm making this into an iceberg video because of the sheer amount of the theories, which range from extremely plausible and evident to some of the more abstract and weird theories out there.
You'll see.
For each of those, I'm going to give the facts and then take those facts to their logical conclusion, filling in some of the gaps here and there the best I can. Let's start off with what we actually know about the Strangler.
I understand nothing.
Skip ahead to the next chapter if you're already up to date on your Strangler lore, but for those who haven't watched the show on repeat over the last 10 years and scoured Reddit fan theories, let's start with what little we actually do get about this character in the series. By my count, the Scranton Strangler is mentioned in only 13 episodes, starting with this one throwaway joke.
I decided to give baby Halpert a newspaper from the day she was born, but she decided to take her sweet time, so now I have to switch it with today's paper.
And from there, based on fan sentiments, the bit was used a few more times that season.
This move, he can't get you.
Well, I think that he could counter that move. The Scranton Strangler is a professional strangler.
Oh, please, I wish he'd come after me. I would be like...
Dwight's throat!
Boom, like this. 911, hello, Scranton Strangler's in the house. Inside the house.
And then by next season, it seems like the Strangler lore has taken over Scranton, but comes to a head in the viewing party episode with...
They caught the Scranton Strangler. They trapped him in his house.
Out and then photographing them is believed to be inside.
This leads police on a high-speed chase, which coincidentally goes right down Slough Avenue.
Where were you the day the Scranton Strangler was caught?
Later in that season, in order to introduce Michael's HR love interest back into the series,
Jewel bastard,
Toby has to step away for an extended jury duty for the Scranton Strangler trial.
Jewel bastard.
We find out later in Michael's Last Dundies that the man convicted for the crime's name is George Howard Scubb, and Toby's return to the office kicks off kind of a deeper plot line in the series in which Toby is not quite convinced that Scubb was guilty.
I was part of the verdict, and I'm not so sure he's guilty anymore.
Toby later decides to speak with Scubb, who is serving a prison sentence, and Toby is strangled during the encounter.
I bet he's wishing he was strangling someone.
Okay.
And that pretty much
Put this matter to bed.
There's just not much more about the Strangler in the series. But with so much content produced about The Office over the last several years, there have been some interesting reveals here and there from behind the scenes. Pretty much unanimously, the creators and writers of the series have held that George Howard Scubb was the Scranton Strangler. More than one writer has confirmed that the Strangler never really unalived anyone.
The one thing the Strangler did was he strangled people but didn't kill them. He left them once they've been strangled and passed out.
Is that true?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure we ever got around to saying it, but that was always our thing. The Scranton Strangler didn't strangle you to death.
To keep it more light and airy, the Strangler just strangled the victim until their health bar was almost fully depleted and then left the scene.
But he's wishing he had a hybrid.
Then we have to talk about how The Office's official YouTube channel released this video, which, while it was just a clip montage like everything else that channel does, it was all Toby being weird. And it definitely reignited this conversation about the Strangler. And some take this as canon confirmation from The Office that Toby is the Scranton Strangler. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute. And then the last thing that we should speak about are a few of the elements from the show that the fans fixate on for these fan theories. First is the dark nature of the crimes here suggests that someone was dealing with some major psychological issues. After all, a spree of stranglings is as heinous as it is weird.
That's so weird!
And thus, the suspect would probably have some complex issues with their mental state. And then secondly, that there are some specific details and plot points during the Scranton Strangler standoff that fans like to talk about. Like the phone call to the office, which Kelly hangs up without answering, is of specific note, because the staff are gathered around Toby's desk.
When is he gonna come out?
For what we all pray is the last.
And fans also point out that Toby is not present. And then there's the fact that the Strangler leads police down this back road of Scranton, which seems too coincidental for fans to ignore. But lastly, what fans have noticed from that chase is that the car the Strangler is driving has been seen in the Dunder Mifflin parking lot before.
Jump over the camera.
Is that all?
Yes. Also, I love you.
So that is all the show presented about the Strangler, what the creators and writers have confirmed in the years since, and some of the details that led fans to conclude that the Strangler must work for Dunder Mifflin. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything. I think I got it all.
Dwight, you ignorant slut!
But for now, let's take a look at the suspects as we descend into the iceberg of theories. For each of these theories we're going to talk about today, I'll list out the suspicious facts that we know about the character, and then I'll put those plot points together to try to flesh out this theory into its actual logical conclusion, to the best of my ability in some of these cases. So let's start diving under the surface with what is probably the most well-known and fleshed out suspect, Toby Flenderson. Now, this first stop under the surface is a mile wide and a mile deep, and it seems to have won the hearts of many Office fans, some of whom consider it less of a theory and more of actual canon, and they vigorously defend their position.
You are the silent killer. Go back to the annex.
In my opinion, Toby is the Scranton Strangler theory is the lifeblood of this entire thing, and probably created a newfound attention to him during rewatches, especially for a character whose primary trait is boring.
Who do you think you are?
Toby.
Well, let's start with the facts. Toby is the butt of the jokes around the office.
Why are you the way that you are?
He is the punching bag for Michael for years on end, but it also blends into other characters as well.
I don't see no harm in that. Well, it's a cake, Toby, so come on.
Toby's private life is often leveraged against him.
Also, he's divorced, so he's really not a part of his family.
But through all of that, we glean some insights about his backstory, which is shockingly very sad.
When I was a kid, my parents got divorced. Both wanted custody, and they both asked me to testify against the other one in court.
I want to go home.
Well, you don't even have anybody to go home to, Toby.
Why you always gotta be so mean to me?
Fast forward to season 3 when the Tobster finds out that Pam is back on the market, and he crushes hard for the receptionist. He half attempts to ask her out a couple of times, but he never really goes full Jim.
Then it's a date.
But even after Jim goes full Jim, he does seem to hold out some hope that maybe there's still a shot with him and Pam.
Well, I don't want to speak for Jim, but it's like pretty official.
Let's just wait and see what happens. Yeah. What? Let's just wait.
And in season 4, we begin to see an unsettled Toby and maybe an underlying rage that's there because of that unrequited love. All of that culminates to this boundary crossing moment. It's like a blend of Toby's subconscious fantasies manifest themselves, and it all happens just so fast. And speaking of fast, both showing off a stunning feat of athleticism and self-hatred. He does eventually go to Costa Rica, though, to start a new life.
I broke my neck.
And the timeline for the Scranton Strangler works comfortably here as well, because Toby does return back from his Central American injury vacation.
No!
And not soon thereafter, the Strangler begins their work. It's also noted that the first time that we even hear of the Strangler, Pam, the source of all of Toby's angst as far as we know, is giving birth to her first child with Jim. It's probably safe to say that he doesn't really feel truly seen by his coworkers.
Who let the Lemonhead into the room? You are a waste of life, and you should give up.
Later, we find out that he's been a self-defense instructor for quite a while.
Strike, scream, and run.
Yeah! We also know he's writing a series of crime novels.
It's interesting that you're drawn to the point of view of the attacker. You would like The Turn of the Table. Okay, the latest Chad Flenderman novel.
And lastly, he is on the Scranton Strangler trial, of which he later becomes quite obsessed with. So bringing this all together and to its logical conclusion, the theory goes that Toby, a very sad and miserable little man attempting to find some sense of control over his life, failing to assert himself time and time again, becomes increasingly more desperate as the days go on. Which, yeah, I get, but how do you go from Toby we see in the show to Toby who's strangling people on the streets? It probably all started with a self-defense training class. Maybe during a demonstration, he got a little too carried away in a session. And the look of fear and helplessness in the victim's eyes sparked something that Toby had never seen before. He was truly seen by this victim, well, while he was, choking her. So the idea then is that Toby then dons a mask and begins stalking some of the lesser capable self-defense pupils from his class. Now maybe he sees himself as a monster, but the sense of control that he gains outweighs any of that guilt. And this spree gave him a purpose and something to hang on to, people's necks. And as everything else in his life was out of control, Toby now finds this new thing. Toby drug over these dark fantasies into realities, fantasies that he perhaps novelized later in his books. His obsession with murder mysteries also maybe gave him a leg up in dodging the law, and possibly, as the theory goes, he set up Scub to take the fall, someone who had once worked in the Scranton Business Park. It's all pure speculation, but perhaps Scub knew that Toby or someone at Dunder Mifflin was the real Strangler. In that fateful day, he was attempting a last-ditch effort to confront the real culprit, not knowing that Toby conveniently took a personal day. Scub had no more cards left to play, surrenders himself to the police, and since he ran, even the best lawyers wouldn't be able to secure a positive outcome for his trial. But imagine Scub's surprise when an old face from Dunder Mifflin
was actually selected to be a juror on a very high-profile case.
And Toby would go on from there to manipulate his fellow jurors into a definite guilty verdict for Scub. And the sheer ambivalence that Toby would have felt at this point is wild to think about. On one hand, he was the mastermind of this crime spree, eluded detection, infiltrated the jury for it, and then ensured convicting an innocent man. But it's safe to assume that without the sense of being seen for strangling people and then whatever joy he got out of doing what he did to Scub, that emptiness filled him once again. He couldn't tell people about his crimes, so he wrote about them. He couldn't brag about what he did to Scub, but he talked about it to anyone who would listen. One particular person challenged him to do something about it, and whatever Toby said to Scub during their visit enraged Scub so much that he attacked Toby. Perhaps he confessed that he was the real Scranton Strangler. From here on, Toby would move to Manhattan to continue writing, but his existence is still filled with an emptiness and a sadness.
Is it Nellie?
Man, taking fan theories about secretly strangling people to their logical conclusion gets kind of dark. And while this might be one of the most compelling theories out there because of the vast amount of evidence that there is just one problem.
7 out of 10 tweets aimed at me are simply, "Are you the Scranton Strangler?"
When you were writing the show and when you were acting in the show, did that ever cross your mind?
No.
Not once.
But nevertheless, do you believe it's Toby?
And the verdict, it was Toby. And the sentence, death. Death to Toby. Death to Toby.
Leave it in the comments and tell me what I maybe have missed or any other plausible logical conclusion that I didn't think of. If it's not Toby, maybe it's who's next. Creed Bratton. That's right, for fans of the series, it should be no surprise that our next deeper theory for the identity of the Scranton Strangler is none other than series regular psychopath Creed Bratton.
Creed.
Let's start with the facts. Creed Bratton is the musician from the grassroots, now living in Scranton, PA, and working as a quality assurance professional. Kind of. He doesn't exactly work.
Yeah, I finished my work months ago.
And he doesn't exactly know what his job even is.
Quality assurance.
He is one of the most bizarre individuals on screen.
Bo body.
His behavior is quite often unethical.
I run a small fake ID company for my car.
He's been involved in and led several cults.
You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader.
He consistently seems to be against involving the police, no matter what the cause.
And someone is hiding drugs in this very office.
Call the police right now.
Yes. At the end of the series, we find out that Creed has been a wanted person for several years for several crimes.
During that time, the police say he sold drugs and trafficked in endangered species meat and stole weapons-grade LSD from the military.
Fans point out that Creed seems almost gleeful as the cops take him away in the finale, as though he knows that they know only a fraction of what Creed's actually done, which may definitely include murder.
There has been a murder, and you are a suspect.
Okay.
Not only that encounter, but a couple of years later, we have this exchange.
I didn't realize that everybody here dresses up every year.
Me neither. It's Halloween. That is really, really good timing.
Was Creed just messing with New Jim? Maybe Creed's grip on reality is a little loose.
Keep it running.
And lastly, he doesn't mind letting others take the fall for him.
Who wasn't there last week? Debbie Brown. And which day was that? Wednesday the 11th. Perfect. I just wish Debbie Brown had been there. We would have caught this. I feel terrible about Debbie Brown. She got fired because of Dwight.
So yeah, looking this over, we've got a maybe murderer, definite criminal, exotic animal trafficker. Is it that far of a stretch to add Strangler to the list?
Just pretend like we're talking until the cops leave.
So let's take this to its logical conclusion, and the theory goes Creed Bratton, singer from the Grassroots, brain fried from years of drugs, sex, and rock and roll, is assuming a quiet existence in Scranton, PA, in order to hide from the law in plain sight. But then a film crew selects his office to use as subjects for a documentary. Creed starts playing the part of an old man losing his mind.
Have you ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
What are you doing? Perhaps this all started as documentation, so years later he could avoid jail time by claiming insanity. But somewhere along the way, Creed snaps. He decides that his insanity evidence will cover a multitude of crimes, including ones that he hasn't even committed yet. So while his behavior spirals downhill on camera, so does his nefarious off-screen behavior. And it all begins by stalking victims. His time as a cult leader would definitely help him identify the best victims, those who couldn't or wouldn't be able to point him out in a lineup, and eventually the stalking turns into strangling. Why does Creed do any of this?
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Let's put a smile on that face.
Once the police show their cards and Scub gives them a little reasonable doubt to his guilt, Creed knows that he's off scot-free, but the beast within cannot be satiated, especially when rumors of his last real lifeline to reality is getting possibly cut off from him.
It is rumored that they will recommend declaring bankruptcy.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, Lord, we're all gonna lose our job.
So he ramps up the violence.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
And while I don't necessarily subscribe to this theory, the real Creed Bratton, in like our reality, this says this. He's done this a few times now. So is the Scranton Strangler actually Creed Bratton? With the random nature of the crime spree, it matches perfectly with Creed's unpredictability. So leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know if I missed anything on Creed's history or his theory. But for now, let's go down another notch in Scranton's own Slenderman, Gabe Lewis. Gabe Wad, or Gabriel Susan Lewis, if we want to make him sound more like a serial killer, is the gangly corporate liaison between the main Sabre office and the Scranton branch. He's on the show from season 6 to season 8 until his departure from the series, never to be seen or heard from again. Gabe is a metaphor for corporate ineptitude and overspending.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm up there. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm down here.
So why do fans throw shade at this tall drink of water as the Scranton Strangler? Well, like always, let's start with the facts. Gabe's appearance on the show is merely months, if not weeks, before the audience reveal of the Strangler's existence. And his first departure from full-time Scranton life is a few weeks after the Strangler trial.
Oh, hey Gabe, I'm sorry. We didn't get you a cake or anything. We're gonna miss you.
Oh, well, I'm still the corporate liaison to the branch.
Gabe's physicality is also a consideration as he stands well above average normal men and women, giving him a long arm span and height advantage.
There are 4 tenets of Pilates that I live my life by. 1, lengthen. 2, elongate.
Beyond that, Gabe seems obsessed with horror movies.
You don't want to get on my bad side. I've seen some horrible things. I own over 200 horror movies.
Okay, that's so weird.
Even obscure horror films.
I picked out our movie. It's called Suspiria. It pushes all the boundaries. All your preconceived notions about what horror can be come crashing down.
In fact, he loves the genre so much, he eventually begins to consume and create
the cinema of the unsettling.
And while Gabe's behavior is often awkward around the office,
happy birthday to Gabe.
Oh, get out, skeleton man.
Some of his more darker tendencies are on full display after his breakup with Erin.
You can't be in here. This is a ladies' bathroom.
Erin, I respect your privacy, but I will follow you in here every time you go if that's what it takes.
Agreed.
Not cool, man.
And then even worse with how he treats the most powerless person amongst them.
Walk away, bitch.
Lastly, Gabe is not respected around the office staff, whom he considers beneath him, and yet he's also not respected by his superiors. Both his bosses and underlings treat him like a tool, just for different reasons. Armchair psychologist here, it's a powerlessness that dominates Gabe into this quiet and awkward existence that he lives out in Scranton, and it makes for one of the most tragic characters of the series, but it's all masked underneath these laughs.
Every word out of your mouth is like the squawk of an ugly pelican.
It's a wonder, though, after looking at all of those facts, that Gabe is not higher on this list, but taking it to its logical conclusion, the theory goes, Gabe Lewis grew up with a sizable amount of trauma and emotional damage, all of which manifests itself into his constant need to mask his gaping insecurity. Gabe goes to college and gets a promising job at Sabre, but sooner or later he comes to grip with what his real job is.
And I am the toilet of this office. I flush away annoying problems so others can keep their hands clean, and just like a toilet, I am essential.
While he plays it off, he has to, because the facade is all that's holding him together. Inside, a storm is raging. He feels like no one gets him, except the scary movies that accept the darkness that's in a person, which leads him to the cinema of the unsettling, which maybe leads him to snuff films, procured by nefarious individuals around the office. Gabe is now obsessed with this subgenre and begins making his own. But surely everybody would be safe, right? Just acting. But the stage is set, and the moment he wraps his hands around the first actor's neck, he for once feels like he's actually in control. He is being filled with life while watching the life of another escape them. Moreover, the film is a hit on the black market, and he's thirsty to draw from that well again and again. Unfortunately, actors for shady gigs like this are hard to come by, so Gabe begins to set up elaborate sets and attacks unsuspecting actors for his film. And while this satiates his dark tendencies and desires for a while, something peculiar happens. The Scranton Strangler becomes something of a local pop culture icon, which deceives Gabe all the more into believing that these crimes satisfy his search for significance. But then somewhere in there, Gabe is no longer drawn to film creation. Instead, another desire enters his heart, and it's the new receptionist at Scranton. So Gabe's spree is suspended, and between his criminal inactivity and frequent trips to and from Florida, he's eliminated from the suspect pool. And Scub, the wrong guy at the wrong time at the wrong place, takes the fall.
No, that'd be scary.
And then beyond that, Gabe doesn't last much longer in the series and disappears without so much as a goodbye. Even Nick, the IT guy, got a goodbye.
So that's it. Check it out.
Gabe is in the wind, perhaps still stalking prey, as he lives out a villainous existence in a crappy low-budget horror film. But is Gabe the Scranton Strangler? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Anything I missed about this? Any better ideas on taking that to its logical conclusion? And for now, let's dive a little deeper with Robert California. Okay, so Robert California, played by James Spader, entered for a cameo in the Search Committee episode after Steve Carell's departure from the series.
He creeps me out. But I think he might be a genius.
After the season break, he takes the manager position, kind of.
He drove down to Florida and convinced Joe to make him CEO. CEO. He talked her out of her own job, and I don't really know how someone does that.
And from then on, Robert spends his time split between Florida and his hometown of Scranton, and then suddenly exits the series as mysteriously as he came.
It's been a great year.
So what do we know about the Lizard King that has some fans thinking that he's the Strangler?
You don't even know my real name. I'm the Lizard King.
Great to meet you. Likewise, I'm Bob Kazamakis.
Like the others, let's start with the facts. Robert is nuanced and layered in every single appearance he makes in the series. Robert's motives are always cryptic.
Ours is a cultural ghetto. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. She does like Elmo.
He reads people at a near savant level.
Stop trying to figure me out.
I just did.
You can't.
It's done.
No, it's not.
I know you now.
You don't know me. You don't know me anything about me. Get out of my
Worth
head.
Continuing.
While the staff look over Robert's resume and speak with him, they're shocked he wants to work at their little branch.
I'm almost a little concerned that you might be overqualified for the position.
Do I look like someone who would waste my own time?
No.
He changes up his explanations for things left and right, from the camera to the people. He's extraordinarily good at manipulating everyone into doing what he wants.
CEO. Her own job.
I'm going to tank the Savers store at the presentation to the board.
Robert has a son, Bert,
Pretty boy.
which I'm just realizing is short for Robert,
Everyone hates you.
but also realized a long time ago he's a psychopath.
I'm the CEO's son. Pack your things. You're done.
In season 7, Robert's married to Susan, California. Susan worked for Robert while he was married to another woman.
Last time I had a job, I remember I hated the boss's wife. Of course, she was married to Robert.
The couple bought an exquisite home in the late 90s.
This was hot on the heels of Eyes Wide Shut, mind you.
And as he explains in the pool party episode, this was going to be his den of sin.
I bought it to be my Playboy mansion. A temple to wine, revelry, sex, intrigue.
But instead, he traded in his debauchery for a melody of bedtime stories, exchanged fleeting affairs for domestic bliss.
You enter this room, a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, but beyond it, you are simply a penis, a vagina, hunger, an ache. Susan used it as a Pilates studio.
And the fall of House, California that takes place years later is brutal.
Because of your wife leaving you?
Kevin?
I actually appreciate the human intimacy. I feel like a kitten being cradled by a gorilla. Yeah.
But if Robert California is to be the Scranton Strangler, let's take it to its logical conclusion. And as the theory goes, Robert California, a guy who comes from legacy money with big dreams and a bigger ends up settling down with the local townie in a ginormous house in the Scranton suburbs. Robert has ambitions to fulfill his carnal desires as an open marriage, but somewhere that all falls off the rails.
I pictured myself here every night eating a leg of mutton, the juices dripping down my bare chest, wiping my fingers on the walls. Then I met the vegan.
Leaving Bobby depressed and repressed.
The 1% are suffering too, people.
Robert's dark desires and temptations torment him and eventually lead him into a secret life of depravity and unspeakable acts. Unspeakable because the algorithmic overwatch, which from time to time turn violent.
Some small part of you wants something a little stronger?
Perhaps these victims were acquaintances of his, strangers at a bar, or ladies of the night.
Please, sir, will you not kill me?
There's no telling how long this second life of Robert's continued, possibly escaping detection due to his incredible presence, manipulation abilities, and the way he can just flip personas on a dime. Powerful people have powerful effects.
The dude is an enigma.
It's possible that Robert's success found in the business world satiated this darker tendency over time, and his new motives moved him from manhandling people around the throats to manipulating them as puppets in a show, all in an attempt to climb the corporate ladder as quickly as possible. So why did Scub take the fall for Robert's crimes? No one's sure why it was Scub, but it is clear that Robert would have enough money to keep himself from any real consequences for his crimes, which means that maybe Toby was right in assuming that Scub was framed after all.
I'm fine, bitch. I'm fine.
Whew, that last one got kind of dark, so let's cool it off a little bit by diving down further and taking a look at the king of cool, Bob Vance.
Who's Bob Vance?
You have a lot to learn about this town, sweetie.
Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
Vance Refrigeration.
Advanced refrigeration.
Vance Refrigeration.
Bob Vance.
Bob Vance.
Bob Vance.
Vance Refrigeration.
Vance.
Bob Vance.
Vance Refrigeration.
Bob Vance. Vance Refrigeration.
Phyllis Vance.
Vance Refrigeration.
Vance Refrigeration.
Bob Vance Refrigeration.
Right, so this may feel like it's out of left field, but just like the others, let's take a look at the facts of
Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration.
On the outside, he's a sweet-hearted guy, right? Wrong. Time and time again, there is a hulking beast under the surface ready to present itself. I mean, Robert Schaefer is the actor behind Bob Vance, but was also the actor behind Psycho Cop. But what did he do in The Office with relatively small screen time?
If you ever lay a finger on Phyllis, I'll kill you.
Agreed.
Honestly, enough to warrant some suspicion. Like Phyllis threatens,
Don't make me get Bob involved.
and later Bob comes looking for trouble.
Scott, what in the hell is going on here?
No, we worked it out.
Bob? Phyllis?
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It was earlier today.
Okay.
And again, later Phyllis talks about how she likes to allow guys to flirt with her at the bars just to see Bob go fisticuffs to protect his territory.
Yeah, I love going to bars with Bob. I tend to wear something low cut, get men to flirt with me, and Bob beats him up.
Not quite sinister behavior, but barbaric in nature. Oh, and speaking of nature, there is that time that Phyllis and Bob went on safari and, murdered a person.
During our honeymoon safari in Africa, Bob and I were driving late at night, and he'd been drinking, and suddenly, thump. Maybe it was just an ostrich in a soccer uniform.
Don't remember that? It was probably cut because the showrunners were like, this is too dark of a joke for a show about a paper company.
Too far! God!
Lastly, about Bob, there's one more thing that fans have associated with him, and that's that he's pretty well off. Now, I don't know how the refrigeration business was doing back in the early 2000s. If he was selling business products for commercial kitchens, then sure, maybe there was more of an expansive business model there to have lots of money. Like we see him spend plenty of dough throughout the series, like when he paid this much for a hug.
1,000!
That's not worth it.
Or pays for Toby's elaborate goodbye party. Or in season 3, when the Scranton branch is declared by Jan to be shut down soon, Bob Vance puts a whole deal in motion to purchase the entire warehouse's inventory and keep the crew on staff.
Actually, Bob Vance bought out the warehouse. So he's keeping on the whole crew, so we're good.
Wild to think about, at the drop of a hat, he could just pull all of that liquidity together to get this deal going. It's almost like there was something else going on, right? So let's take this one to its logical conclusion. The theory goes, Bob Vance, a former military vet, comes home from his overseas stuff and struggles to find any real substantial work until his special set of skills finds the attention of some nefarious individuals around the Scranton area.
I can be very, very persistent.
And he becomes Bob Vance, mafia enforcer.
He did talk about a fire in the warehouse. And he also vaguely threatened me with testicular cancer.
As Bob ascends the ranks of the criminal organization, he earns the nickname
Vance Refrigeration
as he doles out mafioso punishment with cold precision. But the name gives him an idea of going legit with a business of his own.
All mobsters have a front. Sometimes it's selling insurance. Sometimes it's waste management or refrigeration.
And the mafia uses Bob's business as a front for their operation, both for active crime stuff as well as for money laundering, which is why Bob seems to always have so much cash on hand. Somewhere along the way, though, Bob met Phyllis and
I'm getting Bobby! Come on! I'm going backwards! Sicking! All right.
considers going straight, but she's kind of cool with his bad boy persona.
What would Bob do?
Never mind, I shouldn't have said that.
But at this point in his life, most of his roughhousing days are behind him, until he's called upon to dust that old mighty grip of his off to go strangle the independence out of some local business owners who refuse to make their dues.
Yeah, buy my insurance or I burn your warehouse down.
Exactly.
Earning the nickname the Scranton Strangler. But this is why the Strangler didn't unalive those victims, as you have to be alive to pay up. But the police could never pin the crimes on Bob Vance because of his network of alibis. Prime in all of them was sweet, sweet Phyllis, who could just verify that her husband wasn't out there giving people impromptu neckties.
What?
He was at home.
We didn't even make love, we just stared at each other. Until we fell asleep. It was magical.
But with the Strangler lore taking over, the Mafia went right to work to set up the fall guy, buying off the judge and some of the jury, but they were careful not to approach a particular juror, Toby Flenderson, because of his exposure to both the PBS documentary and his proximity to Bob. And from there, the rest is history. In retrospect, there's really only one problem with this theory. Was Bob Vance the Scranton Strangler?
Oh, no. Of course not. No. Bob's a United States Marine Corps infantry combat officer from Vietnam, of course, which in some circles may have qualified him, but, no. A Marine, always, once and forever.
There's actually more problems with that theory, but we're going to go one more step deeper with one of the oddest characters in the entire series, Mose Schrute. That's right, the cousin of Dwight Schrute / early showrunner of The Office is often cast as a suspect for the Scranton Strangler. I'd go into great detail here like I have for the others, but really it always just comes down to he's weird, and here's a bunch of clips to prove it.
I thought you were Mose. Does Mose have nightmares? Oh, yes. Ever since the storm.
Everybody poops.
Sales rep for Dow Chemical?
That's right.
You know, we live together, right?
Yes.
And I've never seen you go to work, ever.
Bye, Ryan.
God. What century is this?
Has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is...
No! God, move! God!
Hi, Angela.
Get out of the car! Get out!
Toddlers.
Ah! You remember my cousin Mose?
Welcome, children.
Were you painting in the dark?
The wind just come and shut. Oh my God!
I think it's quite better than I. In the valet, you have to.
It's a finicky
Get
car.
out of your car. Get. What are you doing? Move!
Oh my gosh.
So, is Mose Schrute the Scranton Strangler? Probably not, but this is the right time to talk about a few other honorable mentions, starting with the not so popular theory, but still existing theory, that Ryan Howard is the Scranton Strangler. This one suggests that Ryan was out there strangling folks during his hipster phase of season 6, but the only reason that people really think it was Ryan is because, like Ryan, the Strangler never actually finished his job. Get it? Because, like, the Strangler didn't finish strangling people. Jokes aside, Ryan does have some traits that do make him suspicious, but in my opinion, more like white-collar crimes rather than, like under-the-collar crimes. He's more likely to get choked up at a Hallmark movie than get caught choking someone else. And in that same vein, I also wanted to comment that there are not many theories about the Strangler being one of the women characters from The Office. And I can't tell if this is misogyny or, not misogyny.
And proves my point. Women can do anything.
I'm saying that you're being sexist.
No, I'm being misogynistic.
Either way, I'm sure in the darker recesses of the web, you can find fan fiction about being choked by Pam or Aaron or Kelly or Meredith, if any of those are your thing.
What the hell?
It's okay, guys. She's no longer horny.
Complex conversations about gender and biological sex, average strength and aggression aside, I think generally we don't see women being theorized as the Scranton Strangler is because George Howard Scubb was himself a man. So generally speaking, rules out most of the women of The Office.
But you can be in charge of the women.
But if you think it's one of them and you have some good ideas, that's quite progressive of you. Leave your thoughts in the comments and down we go. Andrew Bernard. Right, so the reason Andy makes it deeper on this list is more of this theory's implausibility, not because he doesn't scratch many serial killer boxes, which he definitely does, but more of due to his fragility as a character, both emotionally and physically. Right, so let's start with the facts and address some of those serial killer boxes. Andy lives a life of quiet desperation.
Last night I ordered a pizza by myself and I ate it over the sink like a rat.
He strikes out again and again with the ladies, often in spectacular and very public fashion.
I had no idea.
Well, that's not going to hold up in court.
He has some serious daddy issues which seem to 100% dictate the way he lives his life.
There's a lot coming up right now, all at once. Dad, go to hell, I'm taller than you.
All of that leads him to a crippling insecurity and a constant feeling of lacking any control. And since anger is really just a result of unmet expectations, and Andy is constantly facing unmet expectations,
it did not go how I had hoped that would go.
His underlying rage is a consistent character trait that follows him throughout the entire series.
He does not like that wall.
There's also some borderline narcissistic tendencies here as well. And despite his esteemed upbringing and schooling, he's terrible at his job, both as a salesman and as a manager.
Michael, I just lost Porter Hardware. I lost him.
You pretended to be in this office for 3 months and you were sailing on your boat.
He's obsessed with the good old days.
I went to Cornell. You ever heard of it?
Cornell.
If you're not a Cornell man, Cornell grad.
Cornell, 95.
Cornell.
My Cornell a cappella group.
Cornell.
Cornell Daily Sun. This is it, Cornell.
Colonel, it's the highest rank in the military.
It's pronounced Cornell.
Who told you that? Was it Broccoli Rob? Someone from Kai Sai? Or did you run into someone from my high school?
And he makes terrible decisions due to the erratic mindset that he's constantly living with. And lastly, Andy's just downright self-destructive.
Aaron, I gotta go.
Them's McCords!
Even saying all of that, Andy still makes for an odd inclusion on this list, but like the others, let's take this to its logical conclusion. The theory goes that actually a year before the Strangler would have began to make headlines of local papers, everything was coming up Andy. After years of living as a severely insecure 35-year-old man, based on Helms's real age, feeling like his career and his opportunities to start a family and even his own happiness were all slipping away from him, Andy finally had something to hang on to. Something beyond singing and Cornell to give him an identity. And though the new love of his life was objectively the worst, and their marriage would have been a hellscape unlike anything he'd seen before, none of that mattered because the proposal was always just about him in the first place. Nevertheless, at this point in his life, he's doing great, flying high, spending money on wedding venues left and right, which would just eventually go unused because the security trapdoor, which was his faux relationship with Angela, drops out from underneath him and sends him spiraling hard. His first step is to resort to violence.
I'm telling you to back down.
And I'm telling you that I will never back down.
Then I'll make you.
Oh, really? How are you going to do that?
Through the use of force.
And when Dwight asks him which weapon he's going to use, he chooses
my bare hands.
That is stupid. I will use a sword and I will cut off your bare hands.
And in public, from there on, he plays it cool. As cool as Andy can be, at least. But under the sweaters and stupid colored pants, pressure was slowly building. Anger management could only take him so far, until eventually he would lose control on a stranger, maybe in an altercation outside of a Jason Mraz concert. And once he got a taste of that sweet relief that causing pain to someone else did for him, he couldn't resist the dreamy allure of control. That sense of dominating another person surely became an addiction for someone with his emotional baggage. And this worked, until everyone's job was on the line mid-season 6. And that fateful day, facing losing another chunk of his identity, Andy steps out of his comfort zone and asks Erin, the new receptionist, out on a date. This newfound crush that he finds on Second Kelly becomes his new obsession, which allows him to kill the crime spree, as well as ruin the next 3 or so years of his life. From there, life continuously spirals downhill after bad decision after bad decision, until he hits rock bottom and finally emotionally matures.
Oh, I can so just sit here and cry. Oh, yeah.
You did good. Real good.
Thanks, Dad. Daryl.
It's like most of that is not true, but also it's also kind of true. So is it Andy? Probably not. Leave your thoughts. I'm not sure he has the upper body strength.
It's come to my attention that in any physical match with you, I would surely be bested. True. The soft underbelly of my refined upbringing is my soft underbelly.
But what did I miss on this one? Leave it in the comments. The next one is so wild I didn't even want to include it on the list, but once I got my head around the theory, it was honestly kind of compelling. David Wallace. Right, so the CFO of Dunder Mifflin, founder of Suck It, and later the owner of Dunder Mifflin, has been called the most patient man on television. That's right, David is one of the nicest people in the series. He's well off, he seems appropriately confident in himself, he's driven, well-adjusted, and also he doesn't live in Scranton. So why do many fans hold to this theory? Well, to be honest, it wasn't much of a popular theory until a tweet in 2020, February 2020, if that actually matters to anyone else besides me to understand the mindset of where we were at that point. Andy Buckley, the actor behind the character of David Wallace, said of the suspicion that he was the Strangler, he had it in him to snap. Hot tub in the middle of the day, boozing, creating Suck It. And what was he doing in season 8? The third or fourth to the last episode. Runs into Andy at a local Scranton charity dinner. Why was he in Scranton? Perhaps you are correct. I was a terrible Andy Buckley.
Suck it.
I wasn't trying. So let's break down this tweet. Let's start with the most obvious thing. Buckley's timing is a little off. He's referencing things that happened in season 8, and that's well after Scub had already been put behind bars. But to question why Wallace was in Scranton during that time is valid, and it does open the door to some ways of how David Wallace might think. He no longer worked for the company which brought him into that area on occasion, though it is like he's drawn to the place. But Buckley's hitting on another interesting point here. He had it in him to snap. Now what Andy's talking about here is a story arc that happened when Dunder Mifflin is bought out in season 6 by a Florida company.
Saber.
It's Saber. Dunder Mifflin and Saber.
The new owners fire most of the executive staff, putting David Wallace out of a job for the first time in forever. This sends Wallace spiraling as the primary identity that he's taken on for the last several years is no longer available to him. He apparently becomes a recluse, day drinking, and kind of a weirdo.
That is some sort of weird creature that lives in David Wallace's house.
This happens, well, just a couple months prior to this moment. So if we take this to its logical conclusion, the theory goes that upon being fired from Dunder Mifflin, after Saber cleaned out the C-suites, David Wallace, lost and desperate, looking for a sense of identity again, would begin to snap inside. He vilified the Saber suits who put him out of work, but admittedly, he harbored some, albeit illogical, resentment towards Michael and the Scranton branch because of their constant shenanigans that put the company in jeopardy more ways than one.
Michael, you have to take responsibility here. One of your employees had a heart attack. He could have died because of the way you're allowing your office to run.
So in his anger and depression, he began to take trips to confront Michael or Jim or whomever he could find outside the office. But he can never bring himself to confront them because he knew his anger was misplaced. But he also couldn't shake this intense emotion. But on one such secret Scranton excursion, Wallace snaps and acts out on some innocent victim. David was probably ashamed and confused at his actions, but he knew that it actually made him feel powerful as he once had. In some ways, barring any witnesses or camera footage, it was the perfect crime. Like taking the breath away from people underneath a mask, calculating the exact right moment to give the individuals some release, allowing them to suck in as much oxygen as they needed at that moment. It was cathartic. But after one such trip, David thought about that moment, the moment where his victim thought everything was lost. But then, as Wallace would release his grip, hope would re-enter his victim's eyes. And Wallace wished that the universe would release its grip on him so that he could suck in his own hope. Suck in hope. The phrase suck in gave him an epiphany, a feeling of motivation that he had been missing for some time. He got right to work on this invention and he called it
Suck It.
And while it would have been hard for the police to identify him as the Strangler, he had enough money to make whatever problems go away anyway.
Satellite TV bill. Lesson learned, he's rich.
And from there, the rest of the show is history. So was Wallace the Strangler? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if I missed anything. And deeper we go. We're getting significantly less plausible, but still oddly compelling theories. I'm starting to convince myself of some of these, so let's go to the next stop. Dwight Schrute. So I've stayed away from any of the main characters in the series, but the fans have spoken, so let's look at the facts.
Are you ready?
Now, my
Set,
groins are really
go.
tight. I can't...
First, Dwight talks about the Strangler more than anyone else in the series, and I think that actually includes Toby. Maybe we're going to fact check that.
Suck it.
Everyone hates you.
About 7. I could beat that on a skateboard.
Maybe we don't. Dwight knows his way around butchering farm animals for farm reasons.
Hold its neck back, insert the beneath the jaw, bring it all the way around. There's gonna be a good amount of Don't let that bother you. Have a bucket there for the and the feathers.
But it would actually make him pretty comfortable around any kind of violence.
To my chickens, I'm the Scranton Strangler.
Speaking of violence, it's often his first method for solving every problem.
Attack!
Wait. Stop.
Even without his weapons, he seems pretty ready to strangle.
Still enjoying it.
Where are they?
He's obsessed with law enforcement, but never really accepted by them.
I'll take care of this. Okay, what seems to be the problem, officers? Not now, Dwight.
At some point in the series, he almost kills Meredith.
With the electricity we're using to keep Meredith alive, we could power a small fan for 2 days. You tell me what's unethical.
And almost kills Stanley.
Nothing to be alarmed about. It's just a man pointing a bull tranquilizer at a coworker.
Incredible. Sick of you and your...
Get set in your haunches. It's like you're catching a medicine.
The size of my haunches.
Just willy-nilly, no real remorse over either of those. He's also trained in martial arts for several years, and while it's played for jokes,
What is called the element of surprise.
he does eventually become a black belt. Dwight is also shown throughout the series to both not really have a firm grip on reality.
I don't care what Jim says. That is not the real Ben Franklin. I am 99% sure.
Nor does he have a real grasp on societal norms.
So anyways, she says, that is the biggest penis I have ever seen. And I said, I know. That's why I brought you to the Penis Museum, where tickets are $1,000.
Taking a look at Dwight during the times of the strangling, we see a Dwight who's heartbroken and looking for purpose for his existence. Now he's moved on from Angela, and the one thing he has left, the one thing he's wanted to have happen since the absolute beginning of the series, was usurped from him by his sworn enemy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, like the others, let's take this one to its logical conclusion. As the theory goes, quite simply, that Dwight, with no prospects of love or career growth, the two things that resolve his character arc at the end of the series, secretly, he took his own character growth and arc resolutions into his own hands.
Also, I can retract my penis up into itself.
By strangling people in the middle of the night.
I'm the Scranton Strangler.
He also used this limited police procedure knowledge to avoid detection and created a night watch group to cover up his tracks.
One of our many recent good deeds, we set out to capture the Scranton Strangler. Mission accomplished. Not by us.
But once Dwight's love contract is solidified with Angela, he forgoes all of this illegal activity to make sure that he can take care of his spawn. And really, that's as deep as this one goes. For most of the others, I tried to figure out how you get from point A to point B, where A is normal-ish and B is a strangler. You really have to do that with Dwight. And A, I don't think he's the strangler, and B, he's already crazy. But like the others, if I missed anything, leave it in the comments and fight it out if you think it's Dwight. It feels that Dwight really, like, it couldn't be him, because the darkest thing we ever see Dwight really do is this fear-inducing antics with the snowball war with Jim.
The greatest snowball isn't a snowball at all. It's fear.
Which does lead us to our next stop, Jimothy Halpert. When I dropped Jim's name on the first notes for this script, I really didn't think there was much here. Just a gimmick theory, but, you know, you be the judge of it. It is problematic, but let's get to the facts. Jim is the meme-worthy, calm, cool, and calculated character. But it's his calculated part that catches theorist attention. Jim is a prankster. It is well documented within the show, and the pranks that Jim runs throughout it definitely develop over time in severity, consequence, time, and financial investment. Some fans have attempted to even calculate how much money Jim spent in the 9 seasons just to mess with Dwight, and the amounts are astronomical. Which is not evidence in and of itself, but it does demonstrate how far Jim will go to pull off a con. Pranks that include stupid harmless things, all the way to convincing Dwight of mythological creatures, murders, and so much more. And while these always read as silly, the darker takes here put Jim in this weird dynamic of power where he's basically terrorizing his deskmate who has some clear mental deficiencies. To what end? What does he get out of this? But does being good at pranks really mean that he's a Scranton Strangler? Well, there is more. Interestingly enough, we find that Jim has some baggage from his upbringing, which was surely a comedy of chaos, juggling these two obnoxious knucklehead brothers and parents who took their home decor to the extreme. We also know that Jim sets up alibis wherever he goes, like in the pool party episode.
The key is you have to make a strong impression. So you want to have a picture taken. You want to say some peculiar non sequitur that people remember. You want to note something unique, a talking point for later.
Leaving a trail of Jim was here breadcrumbs behind, proving that he's a master of covering his tracks. And then there's Pam's cryptic warning.
The one thing Pam made sure I knew, Florida's pretty loose with the death penalty.
It just out of the blue, which makes some fans wonder if she was in on Jim's crimes.
I'm full on corrupt.
It should also be noted that Kathy went to Florida with Jim. We see her hit on him, but she does not return home to Scranton, never to be seen or heard from again. I don't actually have an elaborate story here to take this to its logical conclusion, though, because while there was enough to paint a pretty bleak picture of Jim Halpert, at the end of the day, there's just too many unknowns. But still, some hold to this theory. Could it be Jim? Leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Maybe something I missed. But really, that brings us to the final stop of this particularly breathtaking iceberg with Michael Scott. This is definitely implausible, but the theory actually has some compelling, albeit sinister, aspects. Michael Scott, the manager of Dunder Mifflin Scranton for 9,986,000 minutes, is the villain of the series to begin with, but slowly over time wins over the hearts of the staff and the audience alike.
Best boss I ever had.
But admittedly, there are some darker themes that run the course of Michael's story. But Michael is a complex character. Some of that is by design, and some of that is due to various writers leveraging the character for different ways throughout the series. And as a result, trying to pin down who Michael really is like looking at the stars trying to find new constellations.
I'm Prison Mike!
And why Michael is the way he is something that many a YouTuber has taken a stab at. Like Katie Morton in this video, or friend of the channel 10K Productions just released this video, and I took a stab at this in my own field guide on the counseling episode. As it pertains to the idea that Michael might be the Scranton Strangler though, let's look at the facts. During the stranglings, Michael is a broken man.
It feels like somebody took my heart and dropped it into a bucket of boiling tears.
He goes through a few romantic arcs, which leave him with a broken heart.
And at the same time, somebody else is hitting my soul in the crotch.
He goes through some money problems, which leaves him broken financially.
Bankruptcy!
He repeatedly learns that the company he is loyal to is not loyal to him.
Was he being seriously considered for the corporate job? David Wallace? No.
Which leads him career broken. I don't think that's a thing. Either way, the things Michael goes through would have most people feeling hopeless, desperate, and lost.
And I am crying, and nobody can hear me because I am terribly, terribly, terribly alone.
But this is somewhat compounded when we add in the fact that Michael clearly has some type of mental disorder, possibly a cocktail of mental disorders going on.
Call it a one of everything.
He also is kind of jacked. So taking this to its logical conclusion, the theory goes that after Michael Scott is simultaneously rejected and demonized by his work family and his various romantic partners, as well as systematically constrained by his employers, dives deeper and deeper into his depression. On the surface, it manifests itself in some chaotic and wild ways, but not all too unlike his normal personality quirks. But now, having lost all prospects of career, love, and more, he breaks.
Could you, for once, just let us enjoy a party instead of making it about all your issues?
Again, like some of the others, it started innocently enough. Like, for example, maybe Michael was in an altercation where he was resolute that he was right about something. It takes the law and justice into his own hands, and before he knows it, he's gone too far. If think that couldn't happen, well, it did.
Why is there a kid on your webcam saying that he's being held against his...
Okay.
But maybe that's far-fetched. Maybe it all started in an improv class. Maybe there was a scene in which a strangling was involved, and maybe Michael squeezed a bit too hard.
Why did you have to phrase it like that?
And he let off, and no one was really hurt that day. But it unlocked something deeper inside the regional manager. A darkness that was within him that could fill the emptiness that he had felt for so long. And he acted that dark purpose out several more times.
It's very Hitchcockian.
Great movie, Will Smith. No connection with this, though.
His physical appearance made him nondescript enough to elude the police, and on that note, his physical stature meant that he could ensure a solid grip on those victims. And regretful as he felt about all of this, the violence was akin to a sticker being ripped off that just wouldn't go back on. As much as he tried to stop it, he was compulsive. And he goes out night after night, not really knowing what he's looking for, but
I just hope I find it along the way.
Until Michael is repulsed with himself, his dead-end job, his dead-end love life, and was ready to either ramp up or ramp down the violence.
Pam, I have a loaded gun in my desk at work.
But by the time season 7 rolls around, Michael is beginning to mature and move past those traumas from his past. We see Michael growing up in front of our eyes, and it's safe to assume that along with the darkness leaving him, so was his crime spree. Once again, there's no connection to Scub here. That's par for the course for most of these guys, just wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time. Fans point out that if this theory is true, then Michael's crime spree is actually what it took to get his life back on track. Some even speculate that he masterminded getting Toby on the jury, but
I don't really know how someone does that.
So did Michael do it? Probably not, but it is kind of a dark theory. Can we get a refreshing clip of something here?
Gum's gotten mintier lately, have you noticed?
It's funny that we can Obi-Wan Kenobi things from a show in order to create theories that are both problematic and compelling in their own ways. But after all, people who are looking for confirmation on theories, be them the conspiracy or fan variety, are often not worried about the plausibility of something being true, more of the possibility of something being true.
I don't believe you. Continue.
Let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments, who you think did it.
Frank did it?
I don't know his last name, it's Frank.
Frank did it.
Did it. Sure, Frank did it. Did it.
Who I missed, evidence I missed, and tell me that this is not a real iceberg video in the comments. If you like office theories, check out these videos. I have other theory videos on the channel too you can check out. And if you want more stuff like this, then subscribe. That really helps me out. I also have a Patreon that helps keep this channel alive. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Not that exactly, Jim. Something like that.
Okay. How about Scranton Strangler 666?
Too late. If I was the real Scranton Strangler, you'd be so strangled by now. And if you're out there, Strangler, you will get caught. By me.
The Office is one of those shows that, for many around the world, is played on repeat on whatever streaming platforms available in that household. The show's become a phenomenon, and it's arguably watched more now than when it was during its initial run on NBC. One of the main criticisms of The Office, though, is the increasingly seeming craziness of the characters in the series. In other words, how does the series move from a show about a cringe-inducing boss to this?
Save Bandit!
Or this.
Hyperonic butoxide, as well as...
Dwight, are you okay?
And so on. And hey everybody, I'm Chris. I'm reviewing every episode of The Office on my channel, but today we are looking at some theories on why The Office becomes significantly more slapsticky and erratic through its 9 seasons.
Erratic?
I can't take credit for all of these ideas. Some are from specific Reddit posts and they'll be credited, and some are just general ideas produced from the collective hive mind that is The Office fandom. Okay, so let's start off with a really simple one, the show within a show theory. This one has many forms, sometimes being taken in the form of reality show, like I talked about in my last Office theory video. Sometimes it has Jim and Pam as the head writers of their own sitcom. Whatever angle the theory takes, the idea is that there is a meta layer between the in-show universe and our reality in which a different show exists. In other words, it's a show within a show inside of a show. Support for this theory comes from the simple idea of why would PBS film at Dunder Mifflin Scranton for 9 years? I mean, that's a really expensive and extensive project. But on top of that, as many deep-thinking fans have pointed out, the show sits right in the middle of a tough time in the US economy and the paper industry alike. Yet the Scranton branch barely loses a single employee, and on top of that, the branch is always thriving. So how does that explain the increasingly erratic behavior? Well, to keep the viewership up, shows often have to up the ante.
It's true.
This is how you have severe character changes like the difference between Michael in season 1 and the rest of the series. You'll also notice that most of the side characters begin to lose their depth and become one-dimensional as the series closes out. Theoretically, all of this could be explained by the writing crew behind all of the shenanigans of the characters of The Office, which there is, but a different one. Anyway, moving on. Radon poisoning. Toby knows it. Everyone's slowly going crazy.
We should really have the office's air quality tested. I mean, we have radon coming from below. We have asbestos in the ceilings. These are silent killers.
You are the silent killer. Go back to the annex.
Many fans point to Toby as the Scranton Strangler, and while that is definitely not true, Toby seemed to be onto some serious environmental concerns within the office.
And lastly, I'd love to urge you to keep up with my fight to have the building checked for radon gas.
Was there really a radon problem in the office? I guess we're never gonna know, but Toby seemed to think so.
This here is a radon test kit. Okay, I'll be putting them everywhere. And please don't throw these out. This is a radon test kit.
What are the side effects of radon poisoning? Well, they range from minor symptoms like the shortness of breath to severe, like brain cancer. This theory posits that the increasingly erratic and bizarre behavior of those in the office evolves solely due to the sneaky killer radon. It might be also why Michael and Andy are both somewhat normal in the finale, as they spend some time away from the office. Also, the reverse of that is true for Erin. She kind of is this petri dish for this experiment. She starts as this meek and quiet secretary and eventually becomes this. Okay. This might also explain why Daryl, a character who was pretty normal when he worked in the warehouse, became this.
Go get him. Oh!
So this theory might have some credibility. Maybe it's why the doc crew stayed in the branch for so long. The director had some clouded judgment. Maybe Toby's lack of perseverance doomed them all.
You'll see.
Number 3, Andy suffering from alcohol. Okay, stick with me on this one. This theory comes from this awesome Reddit post, and similar to the radon theory, the alcohorse theory attempts to explain how Andy Bernard, an Ivy League college graduate and overall seemingly competent dude who wears sweaters and stuff, becomes someone who would abandon his life for months to go on a boat trip with Josh Groban.
Them's my chords!
And then eventually quit his job to pursue a career in singing. This theory acknowledges that Andy is always slightly crazy, but his behavior takes a turn at this moment.
The 5 Chinese virility herbs. No kidding. This is powdered seahorse.
As Ryan explains, powdered seahorse gives men super strength. But Andy definitely overdosed on it while consuming alcohol, which is universally a bad call when taking any substance you're not certain the alcohol will interact neutrally with. And this idea is reinforced by this bit.
What does this say? 海马不要跟着乱搞.
Here's that again, but with the loose translation.
海马不要跟着乱搞.
So this theory attributes Andy's subsequent behavior to brain damage caused by alcohorse, and there's a lot of behavior to explain.
Yaruba, Yaruba, Aruba, Yaruba, Yaruba, Yaruba.
This theory only explains Andy's behavior, but perhaps the increasingly erratic behavior seen in the other characters of The Office is merely a manifestation of Andy's deranged mind. Moving on. Alright, like the first one, this theory takes several forms, and it's that they're all dead. This one is similar, or a branch, from my broader Sureverse theory, but it hinges on the idea that characters are either dead already, or a character dies during the series, and the rest of what we see is the equivalent to a Jacob's Ladder-esque fever dream in the character's mind as they're passing away. There's no shortage of near-death experiences in this show either. Meredith,
Very blessed.
Stanley,
Oh, come on, it's not real,
my God.
Stanley. Don't have a heart attack.
No. You will not die.
Stanley! Stanley, you will not die!
Michael and Dwight,
The machine knows! Stop yelling at me! No, it's Stop yelling! There's no room here!
Stanley again,
That in your haunches, it's like you're catching a medicine. The size of my haunches.
and I've always been particularly interested in Andy's experience in the sumo suit. I mean, how did he ever get out of that? We never see it. Do sumo suits even float? Maybe he didn't float. He just simply sank to the bottom of Lake Scranton that day.
Who's there? My name is Andrew Bernard. I was with a group called Dunder Mifflin. Hello?
Very spooky. Like the rest of the near-death experiences, though, the increasingly erratic behavior in the show could be explained by the weird fever dreams of the soon-deceased. Or they were just dead the whole time. And check that one out. It is a good video.
Spoiler alert.
He was dead the whole
Just
time.
stop it.
And all of these theories are a little dark, but it is fun to spot out these things in the series that we love. So that's my list. What do you think? Anything I missed? Maybe you have a theory of your own. Leave it in the comments. Why do we think the staff became so cuckoo bananas over the years? So if you're still here, consider checking out the rest of my channel. We're reviewing every episode of The Office. We dig in, we look at the good, the bad, the ugly, the deeper meaning, and a whole lot of other stuff. So check it out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Why Everyone Eventually Goes Crazy, Who Did Who, and another Mulverine exclusive about the Scranton Strangler this time. What's up, everyone? Today we're gonna spend some time busting Office fan theories with Brent Forrester. Originally, this was intended to be a live stream, but there was a scheduling conflict and Brent offered to take some time out of his day to pre-tape our discussion. While I was excited to hang out with all you fine people, along with Brent, the silver lining here is that now, I can properly present all of these Office theories in their glorious depth, and then we can listen to Brent shred them apart. And as a byproduct, we can learn a little bit about how they created the show.
How did you do it? Also, how do cameras work?
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to establish is Brent's tenure and credibility to have some authority to comment on these theories.
So I was not one of the original Office creators. You know, that was Greg Daniels, of course. Mindy Kaling was on that original staff. Lee and Jean, as they're known, Mike Schur, Paul Lieberstein, Jen Salata, BJ Novak. but I was not part of that group. They created that show, and then I came in. I feel like it was officially the beginning of season 3, and I was there till season 9, till the very end. And in the last season, you know, Greg was developing a bunch of TV shows, and he gave me a lot of responsibility to run the room there at the office in season 9.
Don't screw the pooch.
Then, just for all of us, I wanted some context on how the writers actually assemble these episodes together.
We have a process where early in the season, we're talking about episodes. Then we begin to do what we call breaking episodes, where we're trying to take specific ideas for a story and turn them into scenes with act breaks and plot. And we're never very far ahead. I mean, on The Office, we would have a table read on a Wednesday, and that script would be frequently heavily rewritten Thursday, Friday, and then it would shoot Monday. So, you know, we're just the bare minimum amount of time before shooting. And as a result, I mean, I could never really follow what was happening with all the characters all the time. I don't know if anybody could. And that explains part of why mysterious connections seem to appear that may actually have no rational origin. So maybe we need to explore and see what's real and what isn't.
Right, so with that, let's dive into the theories themselves. First up is a juicy one. Was there something going on between Phyllis and Stanley? And this one's driven from the finale back.
Over the course of this documentary, I've had 3 affairs. 3 affairs.
Now we know 2 of them, Cynthia and I think Lydia.
I thought Terry knew about Cynthia.
She does, but neither of them know about Lydia.
We don't know the third one. Or do we?
Close your mouth, sweetie. You look like a trout.
Phyllis says,
people think that Stanley Hudson's a mean old grump. But would a grump make this?
Stanley must have felt fondly enough about her to do this. And then in this context, we have to deal with this line when the office is talking about office romances.
All relationships, even a one-night stand.
And we never find out who she's talking about, but the fan theory here suggests that it's Stanley the Manly. So let's dig into this one. Is it platonic love, or is it like, you know, is there something else going on there between Phyllis and Stanley? So your take on that.
I love that you have fans that are that inquisitive. I'll tell you, I am not aware at all of a Phyllis Stanley affair, and I think I would have known. I don't think that's real. I think her heart was with Bob Vance for real. She really was all in on Bob Vance.
Who's Bob Vance?
You have a lot to learn about this town, sweetie.
I don't think Phyllis and Stanley ever did it. No.
Yeah, so that one's busted. Sorry, guys. Let's stick on that affair train, though. There's a string of theories about Jim's unfaithfulness, either with Kathy in Tallahassee.
I'm so cold.
Or during his time in Philly. The fans argue that Jim is about to confess an affair here.
You know what? I actually didn't handle that move very gracefully. From not communicating to being a little selfish.
Listen,
But then he's cut off by Pam to avoid embarrassment. Either way, Jim's an adulterer and the doc crew cleaned it up. That's the theory. So let's see what Brent has to say about that.
No, Jim was faithful to Pam. It was meant to feel that way for sure. I mean, that's what we were playing with at that time. You know, one of the great challenges when you're doing a romantic subplot on any drama is if these two are meant to be together, which is what we want to feel. We want to root for the two to get together. What's keeping them from being together? If you don't have an obstacle, there's really no drama, right? So typically, writers had to invent these. Maybe they're from Capulets and Montagues. Their families are fighting. That's Romeo and Juliet. Maybe you're engaged to the wrong one. With Jim and Pam, early on, it was that she was engaged, but obstacles had to be invented, you know, all the way up until when they got married. And then there was, to me, a feeling like the relationship resolved, you know, as marriage is meant to signal. And here you see us trying to invent drama again for them in the form of a threat. But no, he was entirely faithful, in my understanding, to Pam through the whole series. Yeah.
busted. I never really thought my boy Jim would have cheated on Pam.
Yes, we'll tell her the truth. I had feelings for a coworker today that I haven't had in years. In my defense, he was grabbing my crotch fairly aggressively at the time.
But let's flip that script for a moment and talk about the fan theory that Pam actually cheated on Jim with none other than Boom Mike Bryan.
Boom guy.
Oh, hey Meredith.
When are you gonna boom me?
Now this theory plays on what the writers were setting up in season 9, creating some friction in the drama like Brent was just talking about. And it revolves around how Pam had a growing relationship with one of the guys behind the camera. As season 9 progresses, you almost begin to see a pattern arise from Pam that should concern Jim. Jim is distant, just like Roy was, except in this case, Jim is physically distant as well as emotionally distant.
Well, if Pam says she won't go, then we're gonna need a lot more than counseling.
Pam begins to confide in a guy friend and find comfort there. Who's to say what happened off screen? Brent is. Let's go.
I think that's very astute of the fan. My recollection here was this was really Greg Daniels' idea. He felt there was something really interesting about the fact that there was a character who we had never seen, but who had always been there off screen, just like our own Boom guy was on the show itself. And Greg felt, how cool is it that there's been a familiarity growing over 9 years of Pam being the subject of this documentary. And so there was a secret emotional backstory that was profound. That's really what he was going for. This has been her, rock to lean on in some ways. Just really a kind of a brilliant idea by Greg. And so your fans are picking up on what he was trying to lay down there. But in terms of, again, like an actual transgression or infidelity, no. It never went that far. We were exploring absolutely breaking up Jim and Pam in season 9. That was the original idea. Again, a brilliant idea by Greg. Greg was trying to imagine, how do we do the final episode of The Office? How do you finish the whole show? And he had this idea, we'll cut ahead. The documentary ends and then cut ahead years later and see a reunion show. And the reunion will be a reunion of the cast, and it will be a reunion of Jim and Pam. And in order to get there, you have to break them up, before that happens. It all makes sense on paper. It really is brilliant. But the reaction from the fans was so strong. They absolutely freaking hated scenes of marital discord between Jim and Pam. They just were like, it was excruciating for them. And so we just pivoted. We just stopped in season 9.
Not enough for me. You are everything.
All right, busted. So shifting from who did who theories, there's a string of theories about secret geniuses in The Office. And I did a whole video on this topic. You can go watch that next. But the two most popular theories involve Kevin and Michael. Let's look at Kevin first. This theory posits that Kevin is pretending to be dumber and dumber as the series goes on. Support for this theory revolves around how Kevin goes from this,
someone has it,
to this.
You can't eat cats, Kevin.
So it's very clear, he does get dumber as the series goes on. But for why he's faking it, well, those reasons may vary from fan to fan. But the main reason for Kevin's dumbward spiral may be so that he can steal from Dunder Mifflin undetected. We know that he has a gambling problem.
Someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on anything. You take it.
We know that he doesn't mind taking petty cash.
I'm gonna take this petty cash that I got from Oscar and turn it into next month's rent.
We know that he used to fudge the numbers.
I do the numbers.
And we know that he's got enough money to buy a bar after the doc airs.
Well. That's 6 wells. Did I get that number right?
So, is Kevin secretly a genius?
Well, I would just add to your theory that in an episode that I wrote called Work Bus in season 9, there's a great bit of comedy in there. I don't think this was my joke, but I thought it was so funny. You know the joke where Kevin is able to calculate really complex math in his head as long as it's about pies.
When pies are involved, you can suddenly do math in your head?
What an absurd joke, but it kind of worked there in Work Bus, and so it gives credence to the theory that yes, he does have the raw intelligence, but he's not using it. Did you ever see the bit where Kevin is basically speaking pidgin English?
So me think, why waste time? Say lot word when few word do trick.
I remember this came out of a conversation that BJ Novak and I were having, where I had found the New Testament of the Bible in translated into Hawaiian pidgin English. It's really remarkable and oddly comic because, you know, it's just, you've never heard, it's the King James Bible in this, you know, very reduced language. So that's where that one came out of. But you're right, that's a pretty heavy arc.
That one's not busted, right? He actually kind of added to the case there. Interesting. So the other secret genius theory is Michael, obviously, like I just said, that he's faking this entire thing. Now, the theory is all over the place, and people have a plethora of ideas about this, but it suggests that Michael is not dumb, he's not socially inept, he's just playing a part. Main support for this comes from the numerous amount of times we actually see Michael break character and do or say something really smart. And just like Kevin, the reason for why Michael is doing this comes in a lot of different forms. Fans suggest maybe Michael is just a creative guy and he's putting on a show to boost a possible future career in show business. So let's check that one out with Brent.
Again, really smart insights. The one that's really noticeable is your fans are picking up on the fact that Michael is good at his job, which if I was going to go write, you know, like a doofus character and a guy who is in many ways dumb, you know, he's dumb culturally. He doesn't read people great, you know, you would think you would make that character also incompetent at his job. It seems like that would follow, you know, just logically writing. But there was always a push from the network, as I recall, but also from the original writers and Greg Daniels to make sure that Michael was good at his job. Now, I know this was a network note. I know it was given as a note. I don't know why it was felt that this would be important, but it was considered very important. I mean, we were reminded of it on a yearly basis, certainly. You know, if you ever transgressed and made him terrible at his job, someone on the staff would give you the note. Oh, wait, remember, make Michael good at his job. So that was a deliberate effort for sure. And now it is good. Why is that good? I guess probably it just becomes too unbelievable. He is the manager of this office. And if he was terrible at his job, he wouldn't be able to have that position. I think that's basically it. Realism is always the thing which The Office at its best brings better than almost any other show. And so realism was always super important. I think that's why he was made good at his job. Now, was he faking? Okay, the short answer is no. He what you see is what you get. But I think that element of faking, it's smart that you're focused on that, because if you think about it, what's so funny about Michael Scott is he knows himself to be in front of cameras all the time. And so he is presenting a fake version of himself, you know, to the cameras all the time. So that is what you're picking up on in his performance. That's what's funny about his performance, is pretending to be better liked than he is, you know, pretending to be smarter, pretending to be more popular, you know, all that kind of pretending is funny. And that element, yes, is fakery.
Right, I think I'm calling that one busted, but what a fun character for them to write for, right? Michael's motives were always so nuanced, layered between what he thinks of himself, the opinions of people around him, and the public persona he was building through the documentary.
Hey, will you guys let me know if this ever airs?
But speaking of the doc, one of the most requested theories to bust for this video was that the doc crew was making the Scranton branch successful. Right, so this plays on the series-long trope that the Scranton branch is inexplicably successful.
I have to explain to them why your most profitable branch is bleeding.
And there's never a good reason presented for why.
You're not our most traditional guy, but clearly something you are doing is right, and I need to get a sense of what that is.
David, here it is.
Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
like an improv conversation. Improvisation.
Fans suggest that it might be Kevin's faulty accounting.
He used to call it a Culleven. He told Dwight, a mistake plus Culleven gets you home by 7.
Or that Michael's bosses were all just lying to him about the profitability.
You've got to be kidding me. We're the best branch in the company.
But the Doc Cruise theory suggests that the production company behind the documentary was actually channeling money to Dunder Mifflin Scranton via paper sales just to keep that branch afloat. The reason for why the Doc crew would do this? They had a gold mine with all these subjects. But let's turn it over to Brent to see what he thinks about this one. They knew they had gold with with these specific subjects. So if they went under, their doc goes away.
I like it. It's a smart theory, but that was not what was going on.
Short and sweet, busted. Flowing from that theory, though, is another one in which the fans try to reconcile how zany the show became throughout its runtime.
Weird to see how we used to look in those promos. Some of us have changed so much.
We've all changed.
Theorists have all sorts of ideas on the matter, and I talk about them in a lot of detail in this video. The one I talk about with Brent the most was the radon theory. So if you recall, radon comes up a few times throughout the series. First time here.
The office is air quality tested. I mean, we have radon coming from below, we have asbestos in the ceilings. These are silent killers.
You are the silent killer. Go back to the annex.
You'll see.
We'll get to him in a second, don't worry. But radon comes up again here.
This is a radon test kit.
So one of the impacts of radon poisoning is harmful effects on the brain, which makes this theory a little dark. But the reason why the Scranton branch goes from this.
Damn! Oh. I wish I had time to change it, but Jan needs it by 5, and what time is it? What time is it?
To this.
I mean, I could try destroying the pumpkin.
No!
But as Jim and I discovered,
is because they're suffering from radon-induced brain damage. There's a motif throughout this show that fans have pointed out of potential radon poisoning.
No.
Okay, so, right. So in season that's going on, everybody's slowly becoming insane.
I like this theory. I mean, the actual answer is, The Office at its best is in that naturalistic tone, that, what we used to call small, real, relatable. That's always the ambition of the shows, to be in that tone. And it's just very hard to do because they're just, you run out of small stories, and yet you've got to shoot an episode. And it's like, honestly, it's a devolution, I think, in the minds of taste-making comedy people, which is mostly what was at The Office. All the episodes that they love best will be in that much smaller comedy tone. And we've all come to appreciate the real comedy that happens in the zanier tone, because it is undeniably funny, a lot of the zanier stuff. But really, I think it is that the standard of naturalism is hard to maintain. That's what happened. It wasn't radon to the characters, it was fatigue for the writers.
Yeah, that one's busted, done. It's a nice fan theory to try to reconcile the progression we see throughout the series. But if you're familiar with my channel, I did a whole video on the Sureverse theory, which suggests that The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, and I guess New Girl in there, all take place within the Good Place universe. Let's see what he had to say about that one.
I loved it. That's a brilliant theory.
Yeah, I called that one brilliant. No big deal.
It makes me feel like someone should write a spec Office where all of that is true. Where radon has been poisoning people, the Doc crew has supported Dunder Mifflin, Kevin and Michael are secret geniuses, and they're all dead.
So obviously busted. And the Mac Daddy of all Office theories is the identity of the Scranton Strangler. I've talked about the Strangler a ton on my channel. I've made an entire true crime series about the Scranton Strangler. Introduced in season 6 and teased throughout the rest of that season, a major plot point in season 7, and again in season 9. The show seemed to go out of its way to reinforce that none of our cast was the Scranton Strangler. But that doesn't stop fans from picking out who their favorite suspect is. And the top of that list, the head honcho of Scranton Strangler suspects, is Toby Wyatt Flenderson. Fans call out his shady behavior, his troubled relationship with religion, his pent-up aggression, and his crime novels, all as anecdotal evidence. So is Toby the Scranton Strangler? Have you heard this theory that Toby is the Scranton Strangler?
I saw that in your email, and it's not crazy. We definitely toyed with episodes in which the Office themselves thinks Toby is the Strangler. For sure, that was an episode we were working on at one point.
Okay, so wait, like this one blew my mind. I'm not really sure how this was the first time I've ever heard of this. There was in the works an episode in which everyone was suspecting Toby as the Scranton Strangler. Whatever happened to that episode?
There wasn't enough time to do all the material we wanted to do, but I remember going well down the path of that one. We might have beat out the whole, C story on that one.
Oh, man. Yeah, if you have any notes anywhere on that, people would lose their minds. Sometimes it's better to not even know these things exist. How amazing would that episode even be? Mulverine exclusive, I guess. I've never heard of it. Okay, so he didn't quite answer the question though, right? So I pushed again on if there was anyone behind the scenes as a writing staff that they considered the Scranton Strangler, other than George Howard Scubb.
Okay, here's what I remember about the Scranton Strangler. I think it was born of a kind of a true crime fascination before people were really talking about that, because this was before the explosion of true crime podcasts. But there were people that were interested in that little subgenre early, and that's what this was reflecting. I wouldn't be surprised it was Mindy who came up with it. She always had her finger, super on the pulse of what was going to be a trend. So I would bet Mindy was at the root of the Scranton Strangler obsession. Jen Salata might have not been another one who was heavy into it. There was never an actual person known to us that we were going to reveal was the Scranton Strangler. We never went that far. And I think maybe that's just comedy writers versus drama writers' instincts. When you really get down to it, that material is funny when it's about characters' interest in true crime. But when you actually get into the, strangling people and homicide, that's beyond the scope of comedy, at least in my ability to write it.
Well, and that's what you play with in season 9, right? With Toby's obsession with the case and the trial, and that's like becomes his identity almost. That's the only thing he can talk about.
That's right. Yes.
I think. Yeah, I loved that. Okay, so what you're saying is that Toby is the Scranton Strangler.
He is not the Scranton Strangler. I can tell you that for sure.
Thank you for that soundbite. Oh, I love it. So officially busted again. Thanks, Brent. Brent, what's going on with you that you'd like to tell people about? Anything you want to plug?
Apparently, my TikToks are popular.
I love them.
I was teaching a class, and my young producer said, you have to make 30-second TikToks. And those are more interesting, apparently, than anything I've ever done. So I'm trying to drop comedy wisdom on TikTok. Check that out. And of course, occasionally I teach a class. So go to brentforrester.com to check out my class.
Right, so that's all I have for us today. Thank you so much, Brent, for hopping on here to bust some fan theories. And thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you next time. Yep, you read that right. The staff that we've come to know and love from the Dunder Mifflin Scranton branch, the Pawnee, Indiana Parks and Recreation Department, and the Brooklyn 99 Police Precinct have been dead the whole time. And it was right in front of us.
No. It wasn't me. I gotta find Lawanda at the alcohol club. Oh.
There's so much to talk about and no time, so let's just jump right into this one. To get into this theory, though, we need to first flesh out an already established theory on the internet. The connected universe. A sureverse, if you will. This is already a documented theory out there on Reddit, and whomever is a fan of Michael Schur's shows probably is already familiar with it. So the gist of it is, The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, and The Good Place all exist within the same shared universe, which means that Michael Scott, Leslie Knope, Jake Peralta, and Eleanor Shellstrop could have theoretically all bumped into each other at some point in a grocery store, or something cooler than that.
Cool. No doubt.
Our first clue to the shared universe is that each show have all in some way, shape, or form been worked on, written by, produced by, and or created by Michael Schur. Subjective opinion here, these are some of the best, smartest written comedies, nay, overall television shows produced for main networks in the last 15 years.
Well.
Yeah, don't do that. Just lay off.
There's a ton of connections between these shows that have been spotted out and posted on Twitter and Reddit over the last several years, with another big boost coming out since The Good Place has gotten popular, which is chocked full of references to Michael Schur's other shows. Again, there's not a lot of time, so I'm gonna fly through some of these connective universe points of interest as quickly as I can. First, there's an abundant amount of actors that cross over from one show to another. And when I said abundant, I mean it. There are so many. There's Adam Scott, Maya Rudolph, Jason Mantzoukas, Kristen Bell, Andy Samberg, Nick Kroll, and honestly so much more. Even the little Sebastian Horse actor makes an appearance in The Good Place. And the list goes on and on and on and on. I came up with 32 crossover actors, and 2 of the shows are still in production at the time of this video. Next, a lot of these shows are chock full of Easter eggs about other shows in the Schurverse. There's a magazine featuring Dennis Feinstein's Scent that showed up in the hands of Eleanor Shellstrop moments before she dies. Another magazine that Eleanor was reading during a different time on Earth features another ad for a champagne brand owned by Jean Ralphio, and this brand was teased in the Parks and Rec finale. The Swanson Safe Company appears in season 1 and 3 of The Good Place. The Lurpris family is referenced in Parks and Rec and in The Good Place. You may not recall Bjorn Lurpris in Parks and Rec, but he's the guy who loves paunch burgers.
Bjorn Lurpis of the Pawnee Lurpis family.
And speaking of paunch burgers,
the Paunch Burger Dinner for Breakfast Burger Combo. It tastes amazing. What's in it? Who cares? How many calories? Shut up. It's awesome.
The paunch burger, the bane of Leslie Knope's existence in Parks and Rec, is on the menu of the Cowboy Buffet in Sydney, Australia, in The Good Place. The font's so small here, I just love it, so I'm going to call it out. Paunch burger, $11. 3 meat patties, 6 slices of cheese, lettuce, tomato, onion, pickle covered in our world-famous bourbon brown sugar Thousand Island sauce and topped with a fried egg. The pride of Indiana, recreated here for you.
Put it in your body or you're a nerd.
And there are deeper references the more you dig into the show, but there's no time, so we gotta keep going. Okay, so I think I've established the concept of the shared Schurverse. Now that we got that out of the way, let's dig into the meat of this video. Every episode of The Office, Parks and Rec, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine are comprised entirely of people who are either dead, demons, or angels. So let's dig into this. Spoilers, if you're not up to speed on The Good Place, you need to leave right now.
Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Wait.
Everybody calm down!
For real, it's a great show with a great story. It's some of the best writing in modern day that I can think of, and I don't want to cheapen the experience for you. I'll give you a second to jump ship here, add this video to your watch list, come back at least at some point in season 2 of The Good Place. All right, it's kind of crazy that Blake Bortles is the god of the Good Place universe, right? Okay, I'm just kidding. That's your last warning. If you haven't seen The Good Place, you need to get out of here. All right, if you're still here, you're aware that The Good Place presented in most of season 1 of the show.
Holy mother-forking shirt balls.
Is actually the bad place. The explanation of Michael's planned torture matrix is to create scenarios in which everyone in the bad place tortures each other, just by mixing personalities and creating situations of stress and friction to occur. Eleanor is tortured by the presence of people who she thinks believe that they are better than her, as well as a sense that she doesn't belong. Jason's tortured by the same sense of not belonging, but also being coerced into silence. Tahani is tortured by being presented with scenarios that demonstrate that she's not good enough, and Chidi's constantly tortured by being forced to make decisions ranging from moral to super basic.
You basic.
As you know in the show, they figure out they're in the bad place, and then they begin to work with Michael to make it to the real good place. It's a great show, and I hate skipping through it so quickly, but the show is ending after its 4th season. Based on the show's current trajectory, we believe that there's going to be a happy ending in store for the Brainy Bunch.
Earth stinks, y'all. It's hot and it's crowded, but somehow also cold and lonely.
Meaning that they make it to the real good place and exact change on how the afterlife is ran. So I don't think it's a far cry to suggest that those same powers that be will learn a lesson from this experiment gone awry. And that's where we come to the rest of the shows in the Shoreverse.
Of course. I build a new neighborhood. We choose 4 new people, tell them they're in the good place, create challenges for them, track their progress.
We can say that Michael Scott, Leslie Knope, and Jake Peralta are all residing in their own bad place neighborhoods, being tortured by each other.
Man, this must be torture for you. First, what we have to do is find out what motivates people more than anything else.
Sex.
It's illegal. Can't do that. Next best thing.
Torture.
Come on, Dwight. Just help me.
Boom! And that's how it's done. I was faking the whole thing to break him. I could have stayed in here forever.
Good, because facility's gonna be a couple hours.
We're gonna die in here!
Tom? I couldn't afford enough premium carpet to get us to the stage. I mean, it was a short walk, but it was pretty luxurious, right? Okay.
That makes me the devil. You are! She is! She is the devil! I'm in hell! I'm burning! Help me!
Why are you telling me this? Because no one will ever believe you.
No. You sick son of a...
People have anxiety.
I think I don't have anxiety? I have anxiety all the time. Every waking moment of my life is sheer torture. I have land disputes to settle and idiot cousins to protect. And...
Put it in your mouth and just eat it.
God, I hate it.
I don't care whether you hate it. You said you'd do it.
All right.
Eat it. Eat it.
Get personal. High five with everyone in this office except you.
What? But you hate high fives.
Yes, every minute of it was hell. But it'll be worse for you. Squad, dismissed.
I can't. I suppose no. They never really made me an offer anyway.
Why are you torturing me?
Nobody said torture.
But the twist is, these stories take place sometime after the events of The Good Place. As such, we know that these shows present torture matrices that are dedicated to the redemption of characters from bad people to good people.
My guess is they will do what the original 4 did. Seek help, support each other, make wise decisions, improve.
So for example, take Michael Scott. He moved from a self-absorbed monster of a boss that no one could stand
I'm Hitler.
to someone that, dare we say, we all shed some tears when he moved on.
I can tell you what a great boss you turned out to be. Best boss I ever had.
A story of complete redemption from a bad person to a good person. And these are the stories of the Shoreverse. All the characters in all of these shows are practically forced to deal with some moral, some philosophical, and some other bonkers situation in every episode. And the goal seems to be to demonstrate a slow but measurable example of character growth throughout all of these seasons. So for all we know, Michael's shenanigans could have been orchestrated as some form of social torture intended to bring about growth in Jim and Pam.
Everyone, this is a day that will live in infamy because today is the day that Jim and Pam.
Leslie's new obsession of the week could have been orchestrated to both torture but also create opportunity of growth in characters like
Time after time, time after time, time after time.
and the crime or politics that Jake Peralta and the rest of the 9-9 deal with.
He and Rosa were framed for a bunch of bank robberies by Lieutenant Hawkins.
Oh, right. Okay. And why am I bleeding?
I don't know, Hitchcock.
Oh, so you don't have all the answers.
All have a way of teaching a lesson every week. The main difference is that the powers that be in the afterlife must have recognized that humans learn better from these situations when they don't know they're dead. Thus, we can understand why the topic of them all being dead doesn't come up, because they don't know it.
They don't know they're dead.
How often do you see them?
And I can hear you out there But hey, the timelines don't match up. How could this thing happen before that happened?
How can events happen before the ones that happened before?
Okay, I can't actually hear you. I'm just anticipating someone coming up with something. So I think there's a solid explanation for this in the universe. So here you go.
Jeremy Bearimy. This is the timeline in the afterlife. Happens to kind of look like the name Jeremy Bearimy in cursive English, so...
Time works differently in the afterlife, and I think that adequately explains away any and all discrepancies.
This broke me. The dot over the I. That broke me. I'm done.
But what about the crossover actors? They're different characters every time. Ann Perkins isn't the same character as Karen. To which I say, they aren't? They look identical, and in many cases, they act identical.
Oh yeah, give me your booze. I am nourished by your hatred.
Extorting can work. What? Oh. Oh, I got so much that time. Oh, ooh. Anybody want to listen to Jamiroquai right now?
Eleanor said that to forget about Jason, I should create a rebound guy.
Derek.
So I made one. Hi. Derek.
Oh, I'm her boyfriend, and she made me.
He's so nice.
I'll stay here and watch Adrian.
Who's Adrian? Yeah. All right. Hey,
Janet.
Hi there.
Hey there.
Who the fork is that?
Derek Hofstetler, PI.
Derek is my rebound guy. I made him.
And furthermore, I actually think this fits the narrative of this theory. In The Good Place, we see that Chidi and Eleanor become active agents of growth in each other and in Michael, the demon's life. Eleanor and Chidi both seem to get some sort of sense of fulfillment from this work. Thus, I don't think it's a far cry for a choice to be given to a character who's reached the point of being accepted to the real good place. And that choice is go to the good place,
No, he wasn't sad. He was full of hope.
or go to another neighborhood with a new identity and help take part in the redemption of others. Take Rashida Jones, the theory being that she, Ann Perkins, learned her lessons from her time in the Parks and Rec neighborhood.
You totally changed me, you know? You taught me how to balance my life, how to be patient.
She finds her redemption and she decides to act as an agent in another neighborhood. Her assignment, go have Jim fall in love with you, go back to Scranton with him.
If they offer you a job there, I think you should take it.
Okay, yeah, maybe I will.
And start laying down reasons for why Jim should not be with you. Her goal?
You want to talk about it?
Nope.
Get Jim to realize that Pam is his soulmate and thus bring about his redemption quicker.
Everything is going to be totally...
Pam. Sorry. Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
All right.
When her job is done, Karen is seen only a handful of times after this, and it's usually to seal the deal that Jim does not belong with Karen.
But thank you so much for coming to Utica and breaking my copier and telling me how well things are going in your relationship. Really, thank you.
All right.
And after that, Ann Perkins takes off and visits another neighborhood. And just use your imagination here. Adam Scott, Little Sebastian, even freaking Jerry play roles in multiple neighborhoods.
Overwhelmed here today.
We hired our first woman, so of course she needs her own bathroom and the shirt don't fit right. The whole thing's chaos.
It's not a problem, Sheriff.
And I hear you. Adam Scott is a demon in the bad place.
Oh man, this is gonna make a primo dump later on.
I think that The Good Place sets the precedence that if a demon wants to be redeemed, it's possible.
Our relationship has become important. You're my oldest, my truest, my most loyal friend.
I will be there in 2 flaps of a butterfly's wing, and I love you. We are so screwed.
And if it's true that all of these characters are already dead and in the afterlife, does it cheapen the narrative of those shows? I don't think so. If anything, I think it makes it more touching. And that's what's cool about this theory and the thesis of the Schurverse, is that there's redemption for all of us. Look at all of Michael Schur's shows. It's people helping people become good people and get fulfillment out of life. It's the relationships that we have in our life that can be the greatest source of frustration, but also the greatest source of growth. And regardless, next time someone says that Lost sucked because they were dead the whole time, tell them you're dumb. That's not what Lost is about. But also tell them that everyone in The Office, Parks and Rec, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine were
already dead. Probably when I ran over him the first time.
So what's your thoughts? Any crossovers that I missed? Leave it in the comments. Don't like my ideas? Leave it in the comments. But do me a favor, like and subscribe, do us a salad and share this video with whomever you think might be interested in this connected Schurverse idea. On our channel, we're covering every episode of The Office right now in what we're calling our Office Field Guides. We take a look at the plot, our thoughts on the most important things to call out from the episode, and we take a look at the deeper meaning presented in each episode. So check those out too. Thanks for watching. See you next time.